Hello, everybody, and welcome to Virginia Beach Sliders 2 workshop. Thank you for being with us for this very interesting subject matter that we have been given for this workshop. Az and I and Mac are excited about it too. I think for a long time we've been wanting to get things that would affect the physical body more directly and help to prepare the physical body for the changes of ascension and transfiguration, atomic transfiguration and those kind of things. And we are finally being given techniques that go directly into and work with the physical atomic structure itself. And some very fascinating things about the body consciousness. The workshop this time is very, very techniques heavy, just so you know. They started giving me the techniques a week ago or so. They are still giving me the techniques, the written ones, the typeset ones. So we had to change the timings of things around a little bit. On the schedule, we had posted the original itinerary, and we're still having the same subject matter, but because of the length of some of the techniques, we'll all be in a coma if we try to run them back to back and all together. Some of them are literally 50 steps long. Yeah. But they're not techniques you always have to do that long. They are techniques that once you go through, the group activation with them, then there are certain parts of them, like mini techniques within the big techniques, that you can use at different times when you go home to amplify certain aspects of moving your consciousness into the body consciousness to get more, to deepen the experience of connecting with your body consciousness, which will deepen your ability to directly influence what your body does. So you're also going to have a chart pack with all of these in it and the explanation of the short program before we leave. Right. Finally. All right. But we're still, when I leave here tonight, I'm going back up and back onto, Technique 3D, step 48, right? Yeah, and there's 3E as well, which will take you past that. That is only one of them. We have numerous ones that were already done. Some of the more complex ones were given first. But this one that we're working on right now, it is really exciting. It takes you through a wonderful journey into the body, and there are pieces of this technique that you'll be able to use when you go home to really get yourself out there and in there, to shift state, to shift from the beta brainwave patterns of the conscious 3D focus and through into the alpha, and eventually it will take you into something called the theta trance state. Usually the theta brainwave pattern is associated with the sleep state. There is a place when you develop certain things within the body that you can actually consciously shift from from your beta state of consciousness through alpha and down into theta while staying awake. And that gives you access to a whole different set of planes of experience and planes through which you can interact with your reality here and have more empowerment in doing that. So it's an exciting program in the fact that there's a lot of techniques. Some of the techniques are really going to be fun, where fortunately we have the big room out there too. So when it comes down to things that we have to do laying down on the floor, we don't have to move a million chairs and then put them back again. So we'll be doing some of the techniques out there, and we're going to be making a lot of noise this time because it is focusing a lot on toning and how toning works with the body. And there's some fun. One of the techniques called, I believe it's I Am the Voice. They call it I Am the Voice. It is. It's going to be a lot of fun. We begin to hear the voice of our body consciousness by doing certain things with sound, and then we take it further after that. But you'll see some of these techniques are fun. They're more fun than some of the other ones we've kind of like suffered through just to get the activations. There's a few suffer through just to get the activations ones where there's just a lot of technical things that you're like doing in your body and getting them to open up as far as energy fields. There's technically only 4 of the psi techniques, psi development, psychic development techniques that are also biofield activation techniques. These are the ones that are running into like the double-digit numbers, some of them going up into the 50s. And then there's going to be the Aquatune ones that are at the end of the program on Sunday. And there will be pieces from both of those taken together to form the short program, which is basically daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and what you do every 6 months, right? Just to maintain maintain the activation levels and build them as they build in the planetary grid. So your own biofield activations will keep up with the activations that are taking place on the hosted part of the planetary grids. So this, for me, I'm just like, finally, because I was ready to just like disappear the body and try to talk to people astrally at this point, because it's been very hard to bring the information in. The body feels like it gets in the way, where it can't open the cellular structure fast enough or long enough to hold the level of frequency that's coming in now on the line that gives us this information from the beloveds. And it was really getting to be a problem with me. It was like where you're like a power struggle. I hate this body, I hate being in the body, nothing personal body. I really don't hate you, but I hate this experience, right? Because I feel trapped in the body, where it's like it's standing in the way of where I know I can go and need to go. The techniques, they began giving me little pieces of them to help shift some of that. It's almost like a congestion in the body where it just can't bring any more flow of frequency until it assimilates the rest. And there are certain things in the body that, unless they're activated, the body will not be able to go past a certain point. Its atomic structure won't be able to stretch enough to hold the next level of frequencies. And it's not just somebody that's taking in the line from the beloveds that will experience that. It is everyone's body as they move through toward transfiguration. There will be a cap point where your cells just can't transfigure any further or transmute any further into light, and until you open certain other things that have to do with what's called the grail or the grual within the body. So the techniques, they started giving me little pieces of them, and in those little pieces it would release another little bit so I could hold the line and the line would run smooth again for a few days, and then bring the next set of techniques through and the next set of graphs, because some of the graphs were coming with the techniques and that kind of thing. Then I'd hit like a congestion point again where it was just wiping me out. I'd just make me really tired, and as soon as I would start, I'd feel like I had to go to sleep. Felt like my blood sugar crashed, and there's nothing. I'd try to eat something just to perk that up. Didn't help. So they'd give me another piece of one of the techniques. Now they've given me enough of the techniques where I can see where those little pieces of shifts that they did just really quick with me to get me through where I could do the next piece of the work were actually stages in much larger technique sets that have to do with much larger activations that are very, very specific in the body. And through bringing the whole techniques down, the techniques themselves will actually teach you things. Like in them you learn about something called the carinatus seal or spot in your body. We have a carinatus seal. Didn't know that before. Thought we knew tons of anatomy, but we didn't know about that one. This place becomes very key in working with connecting directly with your body consciousness and being able to shift out of just the 3D head state and into the expanded state of atomic and cellular and elemental cognition that the body consciousness part of yourself actually has as its normal focus. So the techniques have taught me many things that I need to be able to talk about that I didn't know about before just by running them, just by having them say, then it takes forever to put these down step 1, step 200. We don't have any 200 step ones, but if you add them all up, there's definitely over 200 steps. These activations will help in a number of ways, but what the main focus of this is to, first of all, prepare the body in ways that can be complex and confusing, that we're better off just whatever. Show us how to do that and give us the gist of what it's for, instead of explaining a million different things about the body and all of that, because I know it gets very difficult, especially in short workshop periods, where so much time has to be spent explaining certain things that we never get to focus the intensity of our energy or our consciousness in on the techniques, which are the most important as far as creating the activations in the body. So this one will be technique heavy. We'll still have some of the graph stuff so you understand what certain parts are and those kind of things before we get to that, get to the techniques. But the most important thing is the experiential element, because it's through the experience of the body consciousness that you directly engage the body consciousness of the atomic structure and the cellular structure of the body. And that's what this one is about, preparing the body for slide. And there's a number of steps to doing that. What will be good is that once we get through the activations from this workshop and then get the short program to take home with you, using the short program will instantly trigger activation of all of the techniques that you've done before. So you won't have to use any other ones except those unless you want to. If you have a particular set of favorite ones, you'll be able to work with those anyway. But it saves a lot of time this way because it needs to become manageable. We have so many techniques and so many things that need to, that you need to do to support the body and your consciousness in this ascension process that it's almost like you feel like you have to quit your full-time job and go sit, in a cave someplace and just focus on doing it because it takes up all your time. And before you can do the techniques like that, you have to read through all the stuff and try to figure out, what is connected to what was that thing he called again, and where was it located, in my body. It's been very difficult. And I've been asking for a long time for the practical program. Please, step it down and give us a practical program. Because the long run, this is like the triple PhDs level that they've been giving us, the high indigo level. And that's great. They can teach us the rest of all that once we get there. What we really need is to know most of the information. We need to practically apply it so we can get there, which means get our bodies out into slide, or if some people bardo out instead, to get your consciousness out where then you can go to their workshops on Median Earth, where we can all sit in the audience and go, oh my God, we thought that was hard down there, right? So, anyway, I am excited about this. The program was interesting. It has evolved even since we came here. And there's an interesting part. I will look at the interesting part first and then go back over and basically talk a little bit about some of the things that will be covered in these. Down here, you will notice a schedule change from the one that was first put out. That's why this is the amended itinerary. We've got down here about 10:40 to 12 a.m. is when we were starting the Psi interactive session. And if the techniques were normal sized, we would have been able to get the 4 of them done in this time block. No way. Not when you have 40-step techniques, and you don't want to start 40-step techniques at 10:40 p.m. because we'll be there till breakfast and we'll probably be all asleep on the floor. So we did change this to, next page please, to next page coming. So we have one there. It's called Activating the Grail Window, parts 1 and 2, and each of them have 20-some steps to them. Then, when we get into Sunday, we put the next piece of them, 2 and 3 end up here. There's other stuff that happens first. Then we have 2 and 3. They're still the Psi interactive ones. Between 3 and 5 p.m., we will be doing those. And then the last one, the 4th one of the Psi interactive, is down here, which will be between 8 and 9 p.m. They're spaced out this way because they are such long techniques. If you try to run these back to back, you end up with everybody snoring on the floor, like we did once in the Phoenix workshop, where we had to run all of the ones from, the dance floor programs, where we had to run all of them back to back. And it's just exhausting for everybody, and that makes it not a lot of fun, because you might want to stay awake to get to the end of a technique, but if you're so exhausted just because you start out tired, and then you go through this very long inner journey, when you're bringing those frequencies in, the frequencies themselves make you tired. So we broke them up they're still in the same sequence of activations, which is necessary for the whole set to work, but they are spaced. So there's other things in between. You're getting up, moving around, you're having different type of experiences, seeing technicals, that kind of stuff. So they're all there, but they're changed from the original one that you had. Then down here, these Aquatone ones, they will be shorter techniques, they promised me. They will be shorter techniques. I haven't even seen these yet, so I will be getting these down in transmission as we're working through the rest of the schedule. What's really interesting, in which I go, oh God, knowing that I have to get these down and the other things I have to get finished, including some graphs, this is where they're going to start day 2 at the time frame. 10 a.m. For me, that's like horrible, because we're leaving at midnight, right? I have to work from midnight until the next time we meet again for the workshop to get the next pieces done. And I've got a lot of this stuff done, but I don't have any of these in yet, and these have to go in your chart packs as well. So I'm looking at that and say, oh, great, got to be there for 10 a.m. That was not originally anything any of us knew about until we got here. And when we got here, I'll read to you the thing. I didn't bring it with me for this, but I will read to you when we get to this section. There is an event that is going to be the first time we've ever done this, actually. We usually do the opposite. It was brought to our attention a couple of things. First of all, I knew there was something up, but I didn't know where it fit. When this lecture, we now have 5 little lectures in there instead of 4, right? And the session 3 lecture changed to Sons of the Sacred and the 6 Directions. I was going, okay, what's that about? And they're saying it's about the sound, language, music, the body, the voice, which we'll talk about in a minute, LTR power grids, that's linguistic template reprogramming power grids, the gifts of the Grail, the power of song, the 6 Directions, and the Treaty of El Benyan, which came through during the August workshop period, there was a treaty made with a host treaty made with the Beloveds groups and some of the ones that the Green Dragon groups, who they have come in because they know they're losing to the Red Dragons, and that's going to create a very not nice fate for them. They came in asking for assistance. They're already in fall mode. They can't go into full ascension mode. The Green Dragon crew. These are the ones who broke the Treaty of Altair back in 2000 and set this whole big nightmare in motion for us. But they can do a Christ host fall, sovereign fall, and they will be hosted in keeping a Christ fall matrix, which we've talked about in other workshops. So this is a new treaty that came in on the big picture drama, and I didn't think we were going to talk much about that except maybe down here when we talk about the bigger picture drama. But no, they put this up here. We're going to talk a bit about it here because it has to do with something that is happening. And as you see here, it says Global Healing Event Number 1, the Hour of Requiem, Calling of the Six Directions, and the Host of Albanian. It's International Day of Peace, Fall Equinox. Now, I didn't even know it was the International Day of Peace, Fall Equinox, all right? That's in the 3D world out there. I never go on the internet. I never have time to pay attention. But Jared and Willow brought to our attention yesterday when we got here about this another little grid thingy that people were doing. I'll read that to you when we get into this section. But basically it's, yes, another large, big event that has supposedly millions of people participating and some big names like Deepak Chopra and people like that are actually running it. And it says, like, and for who, right? For to any and all that would like to join them in their meditation. Well, this time we're going to, because, well, we were invited. Usually we just do our thing, and the other ones working the Metatronic grids do their thing, and we don't spend a lot of time doing the counter thing. We just do our thing and stay out of it. But this was an invitation for everybody, and part of the crew that is running this, we call them, they're simply referred to as being sponsored and orchestrated by those who call the 4 directions. We're calling the 6 directions. Right? What's the difference? When you think of the natural chambers in your body or in the earth, you have up, down, left, right, and normally front and back. Right? So you have north, south, east, west, and then you have future and past. The 6 directions have the natural set of 2 chambers running. When you call the 4 directions, it is calling on the planetary grids that are plugged into the ones where they actually have split the rod, shut down one part of the rod, split the other one, and raised part of it vertically to create an artificial staff, which breathes through the Metatronic thing. So the 6 directions are the natural ones where you're calling future and past in, as well as north, south, east, and west. So there's a difference between groups who are working with technologies that call the 4 directions and those working with technologies called the 6 directions. And most people are thinking that they're doing, calling the directions, there's only 4. They don't realize there's a difference between that. So there's a lot of good people that will be participating in, there's good people, bad people. I don't like to make it that clean, that cut and dry, because even the FAs, they're not bad people. They're just using some very bad ideas to work with, and they have some intentions that could be better. They're still loved by Source. They're still a part of the eternal family of the Christ. But when they work with these 4-direction technologies, they're actually activating the Metatronic structures in the body. Now, this is a huge gathering. It's going to start, I believe it started at 12 p.m., noon, in New York City, so it's on Eastern Standard Time, with a minute of silence, and then they're going into a series of toning. They've got supposedly people all over, millions of people all over the world are going to participate in this. And since they invited, we're going to participate too. And what it's going to do is bring the gift of this code, the Alaria Rashatan code that was introduced in the Slide 1 workshop, which is the major elemental command code, Christic elemental command code. And we'll talk more about what that code is. We are going to bring that as an available frequency to the whole system. And we're being invited to do this, actually, by a bunch of the Green Dragons that are participating in this particular event. So the event is not just being hosted by ones who have a sinister agenda in calling the 4 directions. It's also being hosted and sponsored by ones that are calling the 4 directions because they don't realize there's any more directions to call. So they still have an intention of wanting ascension and wanting to go upward. So we were going to, this is literally where we link in on the D2 physical level. We make the host frequencies available to the green dragons and some of the red dragon ones that are coming in on the Albion host. So it is a gift. It is also the point in time. Notice the word, this is our word. This wasn't part of what they said what they were doing. The hour of Requiem. Now, Requiem is traditionally known as a mass for the dead, a mass or prayer to assist the dead to get over to heaven. All right? There have been many, many people stuck in what are called review loops here, which is, yes, this is for like eons going back, that are literally stuck in these in-between unnatural plane structures in the planetary fields because of the distortion in the planetary fields. They're caught in review loops where they die the body, but they still feel like they're in a body, and they still think they're alive, and there's these whole holograms of many, many people and civilizations that actually have passed on from their physical bodies, and their consciousness is stuck in these review loops. When we do this particular set of things in cooperation with, not standing against, but in cooperation with the other event that is taking place with the other groups on the planet, it will actually open the Grual windows to a degree, not here yet, not on Earth level yet, but in these planes that will allow them to get out and get out of the trapped zones. So it is definitely a requiem, a mass to assist the dead with safe passage into heaven. So it will get those out, as well as getting the living ones that are coming in on the host to have the availability to catch the frequencies of the host so they don't get dragged down with the other set of tones the same groups will be running that have to do with the red-white dragon pulling it into Black Hole Fall. So it's a big event. We didn't know it was going to happen. It came in pieces. One of the neat things about it is that I didn't know about the event at all until we got here. But up here, they had me doing some things, and I didn't know where they fit, but they said, well, you'll be talking about the power of songs and LTR grids and how certain songs can be used, not just songs with Anahazi words, but certain songs in general can be used to assist in your ascension process because they affect directly your D2 body. And there's been some wonderful songs done by people in the group. Some of them have been, doing versions of our songs that, we have written in Anahazi. Others have been using those and splicing them in with their own lovely lyrics, like Kaiv and Taylor have done a lovely job with that. There's the Australian group has done a lovely job with the songs from Morocco. There's the Irish group. There's so many people. There's so many of you out there that have done lovely things with the music already that we're very, very grateful and appreciative. And I want to say that before we get into this, because I don't want you to think that what I'm going to explain next is because there was any favoritism. There's no favoritism. You're all doing a wonderful job. Or failure at all. You're all doing a wonderful job. But this one CD was brought to our attention. It was brought to Az and my attention from Willett and Jared, and they know this person. This person is someone that has come to workshops occasionally ever since our Florida days, back in 2000-ish period. And I don't know the lady personally, and neither does Az. Well, I think you know her a little bit. You've seen her. I didn't even know what she looked like. But here, this little, rough CD came, and I put the songs on, and my hair stood up when this particular one came. They just stood up all over, and Joshua started talking to me immediately. Now, he'd been talking with me. Joshua's my brother, all right, Joshua 12. It's no big deal. I am not a Jesus channel. No way. In fact, he's not either. So anybody that thinks they're Jesus channels, he's not talking to anybody. It's not him. But I have a relationship with a lot of the people that I've known before that aren't in incarnation or full incarnation state here. So it was not anything new to have him come and say, hi, Exis, how you doing, or whatever. But he said, I want you to listen to these. Pay attention. These are important. And I said, okay, who is this person? Because I didn't even recognize the name. So I listened to the whole bunch of one. And that was several months ago, maybe even like end of last year, that I became aware of the songs. And then there's nothing else said about it, and hadn't heard from Josh for a while. Then I started getting a nudge to put that particular CD in when I wanted to hold line for an extended period of time. Very rarely can I listen to any music whatsoever when I'm on direct line with the beloveds, getting technical type. But for some reason, those songs like soothed my body, where it got it out of the way. was like distracted my body, made it happy, and the line just would run and run. So they really helped, and I noticed they were really helping. So, but it's like, that's weird. That's neat. I also noticed the same thing with the first CD put out by Taylor and Kaiva. That one, the Hear the Sacred Call, that one, certain parts of that also do the same thing to me. I can listen to those 2 CDs while online, and they're the only ones I've been able to listen to so far, right? So usually it's just Silence Me and the Beloveds, but there was something special about it. Didn't know really what that was or who this lady was. Was too busy to try to find out and ask. It wasn't really sent to us as a CD for, like, here, can we put it on the product list? It wasn't sent that way. It was actually something that Will and Jared shared with us because they were friends with this lady, and she had shared it with them, and they thought it was really neat, and, they were right. So this was, like, months ago, aware of it, using it sometimes when I'm online with the Beloveds. Didn't know what this was about. Then, all of a sudden, the 2 days before we were getting ready to come here, while I'm in the middle of heavy techniques and all this stuff, right? They said, all right, this next thing is technique. You've got to stop doing that one right now, like the heavy technical one. And they said, put that CD on, and now I want you to pull all the lyrics. I said, pull all the lyrics, right? Literally, listen, stop this thing. Listen, stop it, right? That's how we used to do it with like when we were teaching ourselves ages ago. We knew how to play guitar. We wanted to learn to play a song on the radio. Make a tape, and then you listen to it for a bit, stop it, find the chords, get the lyrics, that kind of thing. So I went through the whole set of them, right? Because I don't know the lady, don't know who she is, but I knew the Beloveds wanted me to pull the lyrics of them. So first of all, so I could see them clearly. I got most of the lyrics correct. There was a few that I couldn't tell because, when stuff is sung, it's a bit hard to tell sometimes what exactly was that word or whatever. But most of it I got pretty good, 5 of them. I think there's 5, yeah? 5? Yeah, 5 of them. And they told me what order to use them in, that they were actually an LTR grid. And I was like, whoa, does the lady know that? And they said, not at all. There was a process that the Morocco songs came through for me a long time ago, before my walk in, walk out, where Katie was given the songs that became the Morocco songs. With some of the lyrics were a little bit changed to more personalize them just for her, but all of the melodies and all of that. Now they were key melodies and word sentiments that were being carried, that they were used in Morocco because they activated certain things in the grids and in the bodies. Katie didn't know that that's what they did when she was writing them. She just knew somebody was helping her. She could feel this presence of spirit with her when she wrote them. She didn't know that these particular ones were from J12. And I didn't know either until they just explained this process to me. There was some kind of old agreement we had. Those who were directly descendant of the J12 family, we have a certain type of the Jeshua codes in our DNA, and it allows for activation of certain things that once we activate it, it will allow the activations to spread through the planetary grids. Well, this person, and she's not here because she wasn't planning to come to this particular workshop, bless her. We did get in contact with her enough, Will and Jared did, and said, the Beloveds would like to use your songs as LTR grids during this workshop. Is this okay? And she said, sure, right? So she was very gracious and has given us permission to use them, which means we can, we take the lyrics. And she even sent the copy of the lyrics of those songs so I could fill in the ones that, where I didn't get the words and all of that stuff. They're absolutely beautiful. And the other songs that the others have been doing in this group, they're also beautiful. But these were particular and only being singled out because they were given, and she doesn't know this, the inspiration, the spirit that worked with her, and one of them also worked with her father, because one of them, her father had written the lyrics too. These were directly through Jeshua, and it was because this person was the other half-sister of Jeshua. I didn't even know that we had one. It was a different... Jeshua, when I was my Miriam self, I was a half-sister of Jeshua, and we had the same mother. Well, there was another half-sister born 2 years later than me, I believe, that was from the father's side. So she's not my half-sister or my whole sister, but this person was the other female, the other half-sister of J12. And that's why this person has had this, protective field with her that allowed her to bring some of this music through. She's going to be amazed when we're going to send her a copy of this workshop because her work is going to feature in a very important part of this. It's going to be used during this event and during the linking in with the large grids, with the big tonal healing thing that the Callers of the Four Directions are doing. So the reason why this set of music will be brought in this way is because it has those particular codes, because of those family lines. So it's not that it's better than anybody else's, but it's important too because of this. So we had to kind of fast track the whole thing. We don't have it on the product tables yet. I mean, she'd like it on the product list. We asked her if she'd like it, and she said, yeah. But it all just happened literally 2 days before we were going to go. And so we will have the lyrics for you. We're going to need, in this block of time up here, right before this, we're going to need practicum. This is where we learn them all, because we're going to need to sing them in here. Right, and tone them with certain tones that are also going to be used. So there's going to be the toning and the singing, and it's meant to be a very powerful event. So you'll get to see the words and lyrics. You'll have lyric sheets, and we'd asked her if we could do that, and she said yes. So that was a real gift that we didn't know was coming, that is going to be in this workshop as well. And they're really beautiful songs. They're also songs that later when you go home, and the reason why you need to have a package with them isn't just so you can sing them enough while you're here to participate in the event, but they can be used as a walking meditation prayer. You can just use them singly or together in sequence to do all sorts of stuff when you want quick activations in the body, that kind of thing. And they are healing in ways that I don't even understand yet, but I do know I was able to hold line very clearly while they were playing. So that was a new little surprise. That was a surprise for all of us on the program. It's going to be a surprise for the lady too. Some of you may know her. Her name is Suchi Waters, and yeah, you know Suchi. Yeah, some do know Suchi. I believe she lives in Hawaii. She's also an extremely talented artist. So on the handout that we will give that has her lyrics on it, and it also has her website. She's got a website for art and for her music and that stuff. So you can check out what else she has to offer. But this was like finding an old friend. I saw a picture of her once. I'd asked Willa, well, who is this lady, that did the CD way back before I realized the significance of the CD. She said, oh, yeah, that's Suchi, and she has a website, so you can go see what she looks like. And I remembered her, but not from that lifetime. I remembered her from other lifetimes. And it was like, okay, whatever. Cool. Lovely music, Don't know you that well. It was one of those I recognize you, but don't recognize you really well. But the music, because I don't know why, it was almost like somebody kept a veil, so I couldn't see too much as far as where, how we knew each other in different lifetimes. I knew we knew each other, but didn't remember the Miriam period where she was directly connected with Jeshua as well. They said it was for her protection, actually, to not have that brought out at that time, but at this time she is now safe, and it has something to do with the Albion host thing, not for her, but that helped. She was protecting someone that were stuck in the middle of that, and now they're going to be okay. So now she can, be known a little bit as who she is. She may say, "I was what?" Right when she sees this, bless her. I was who's half sister, right? We haven't had a chance. We just found that part out this evening, right before we came down, because they wanted me to talk about the fact that we were, going to bring Suchi's music in, as part of it. And there's a particular set of 5 songs that they were referred to. Just like Katie used to write songs, some of them were inspired in this way, and Jay helped her. Others were just her songs, and they were nice too, but they weren't the activation songs. So they picked these particular 5 songs because they are the activation songs, that there was a connection. There was a direct connection with Jeshua, and he gave the music and or lyrics on some of them, or worked with her on them. So it surprised Suchi. I hope you're not mad that we talked about this in public, but I wanted them to understand. I didn't have a chance to call you before we had to go on. Love you. Anyway. Anyway, if that's a problem, we can edit this part out off the DVDs. Just let me know. All right, so anyway, we've got a big program ahead of us. Lots of techniques, some magical songs coming in. We're also going to use a song here, but not in the same way. Excuse me. Because, first of all, we don't know the person who wrote it. We don't know them personally or anything, and they're not part of our groups. But there is another song that was given in the same way, let's just say, by a person who lives in Ireland. And what was his name? Brendan. Yeah, Brendan Graham. And he wrote a song that won the Eurovision 1996 for Ireland, and it was called The Voice. And it is a magical song. There's a version of it that's done by the Celtic Women group, that group, that is quite magical. The song is magical. The song was very inspired, let's put it that way. We have no idea how to get in touch with that person, so it's not something that we can run on the DVDs or anything, but it's something that people, when we're off workshop time and private time, they can listen to it if they'd like to, and we suggest buying the CDs. Not from us. We're not selling them. We don't have them. But it's just because it's one of those big. You know, this is a song that's part of a big band stuff. You know, people that record industry and all that contract stuff. So we haven't even began looking into how we would have a right to play that in workshop, or it could be on a DVD and that kind of stuff. That has to do with, you know, however many times play. There's royalty issues, all of that. So we'd have to get all that worked out. And we didn't know we were going to need that one either. We knew it was special, but we didn't know we were going to need it either. So we're just going to put you in touch with that song. And anybody that happens to know it, because I've heard this, I know some of the people like the Celtic Women stuff, and they've heard the voice song from it. You know, if you want to, you know, sing that at certain points, that's fine too. But we have to abide by the copyrights and all of that thing until we get permissions for that. But off DVD, where it's just us hanging out together on off time, I don't think there's any harm in people that want to hear the music to potentially, you know, buy the CD from somebody, where you go find it on the internet and buy it from them because we don't sell it. I don't think there's any harm in that copyright-wise. So we'll be doing that too, and it's a very good song to sing during this period as well, which we will do. And there are the words to that are available also, so they're not that hard to find. I'm putting it that way. We'll talk more about that when we get to that time. Anyway, that's the musical part of what we're going to be doing. Can we go back to number 1, the first page, please? The musical interlude. And that was completely not, we had no idea. This is going to be a whole other set of events that I won't even, these were ours to begin with. We have down at the bottom, Global Healing Event number 2, Dawn of the New Horizons. This we'll talk about more when we get more of the technicals on it, but we are going to go, after we do this the final set of techniques that have to do with the aquatone part of the program. That's after we go through all these massive activations of opening our own Grual doors, not just the windows, but the doors in our bodies. Then we are going to go out on the beach for dawn. For those of us who want to participate, you don't have to. It's not mandatory. Any of it's not mandatory. You don't ever have to do a technique because we said so. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But we're going to go down on the beach at dawn and open I believe it's the Grual window part on the median Earth level, and it has to do with certain things that we're going to do on the beach. This is the beginning of several stages. One's going to be done in St. Kitts, another is going to be done, I believe, at FOL. Another one is going to be done, a big one is going to be done on the beach in Sarasota, Florida, and during Easter weekend, where we're going back to the Grual. Sarasota, Florida was where we started. It was Earth's planetary stargate to Cathara Center to the Grual. So this is going to culminate in going there. And the same activations that we're going to go through with our body through this workshop, where we're preparing our physical body for the slide potential and all of that, that will be done for the planet during the Sarasota one. So that's going to be a big one. We'll know more about the technicals on this as we get toward the end of the program, because I need to learn more about them. I'm right now, when I'm up there, I'm stuck in technique mode. We're on step 48 of technique 3. Yeah, step 48, which is part of 3D. And this is a really neat one. So you're going to like these. They take you very, very deep in some areas. And as far as the technicals, I haven't even looked at yet. Now, what diagrams do I need to have ready to put up on Mylar? I'm still trying to get through the techniques, so you have them to take home with you. So what we're going to talk about when we get into these parts, the early parts of the workshop, and we'll do our best with keeping the times as something that resembles the schedule. I don't know how else we're going to fit everything in if we don't, because this is a really jammed schedule. I had no idea they were going to put so many long techniques in the middle of it. or not in the middle of it. It's almost like they're sticking technicals here and there between the long techniques, and it's like a weekend of techniques. But the techniques are what is the most important part of the work. It is what makes the changes in your biofields, gives you the next activation level, and brings you up to where your body can begin to participate more actively and fully with the transfiguration ascension process, the slide process. So up here, we'll start with talking about the physical body, environmental mutation. We know about that already, and the saving grace and the Holy Grail Gruel control. Here we'll start to talk a little bit about the technicals, about what is the Gruel exactly. Yeah, I know what it had to do with my Cathara Center too, but what's the rest of it? We'll start learning a bit about that in this one, in this particular lecture area. We'll talk about the planes of creation, the time windows, and the Holy Grail doorways. This is where we start finding out about the windows and the doorways, because we actually have, on the dimensional levels, we have the D3 TIWA fields, all right, that we talked about in slide 1. These have to do with the materialization fields, where literally your imprint goes out from thought. It goes into these fields in your own biofield, right, and it turns into atomic structure there. We literally, when our bodies are working properly, we manufacture our own atoms that become the manifest hologram of our thought forms around us, right? But this doesn't just happen with TIWA windows on D3. On D2, we have the Gruel windows, which are actually the Gruel control. Even though the D3 will set the pattern for the outer part of the D2 level, because what's above will set the pattern for what's below, there's what's inside will set the pattern for both above and below. And that is what the Gruel windows and doors have to do with. And that is what they are the ones connected to the D2 telluric physical body, and they are the ones we are going to be going into and opening in this particular workshop. We will also be opening these at the same time. They're called the Jandas windows. They're the D1 level ones. And we're going to start the activations are what are called the Jadas. All right, the Jada windows go with the Jada planes. The Jada planes have to do with the density 1 field, where you go up to D1, D2, D3, and then the density level of your Cathargoid or biofield. Then you would go into density 2 level, where you'd have the etheric level of D4, right, the beginning level of the next set of densities. So it would be D4. So this is actually the Jada planes connect the density 3 body with the etheric, the density 2 level etheric body, the D4 body. So they are considered astral windows. And these are the ones that when you start activating these sets of windows and doors in the body, it allows you to be able to pull part of what's called your jari, or your literally embodied in the atoms part of your spirit, literally out for first bilocation, full atomic bilocation. We've been doing partial atomic bilocation. We're taking little bits of the D2 structure with us, but it's mostly using the D3 atomic body. This will bring the slide, first the bilocation and then the translocation ability, into the physical D2 atoms of the body. So we're going to be opening all of these windows and doors, and this is a process. So we have at least some diagrams where I can point to things. None of these diagrams are going to be finished, but enough where I can show you, all right, you're here, and this is here, and this is there. That's where this window is, that's where this. So you have an idea in relation to your own biofields where these things are that are activating and opening. So you have a feel for, what we're doing, so it's not just abstract. So we will have some graphs and stuff in this period. We're going to just get this period, this workshop here, or session, is meant to get us oriented to what these structures of our natural, the part of what's called the Ajay body, the Ajay hydroacoustic body, in the density 1 level. You also have a level for density 2, 3, 4, and 5 that I believe each set of 3 workshops that end with an FOL deal with 1 level. We're doing our density 1 bodies now. The next set after we get through with these workshops, they would work on the soul body level, which is the density 2 level. But all it takes is 1 density level to actually get you out. Now, you may get other parts of yourself still stuck in time, but they're not. They're different incarnationally. They would be different than you and your physical body right here, but they're still parts of you. So we deal with those parts later. First, if we can get the density 1 level of our body out, that's our D1, 2, 3 level self, the density 1. That has always been the control, where if you can get that out, you can actually find a way to get the rest out. If you can get it out, just taking it doing the same thing that we're doing here, but on the next level up, which will give you the next level of consciousness comprehension with it. You can do that, or if you get the D1 body, density 1 body through, and it's the only one you can get through, you can still pull the rest out, even though they would bardo out, but you would still be able to get the rest of yourself out of a matrix, so you wouldn't be tethered to reincarnating in that matrix again. So we're at actually the most important set now, but there's going to be most importance that we learn all along as we go into the higher levels too. But right now, we are going to learn how, in this workshop, we are going to learn to merge with our I am body consciousness. There's a part of ourself that is actually fully aware, just like we are, or aren't. It's probably fully aware about as much as we are of its own domain, and probably not hugely aware remembering us any more than we remember that part of ourselves, because there's been a polarization in the fields that has kept the natural flow of energy, and thus the natural communication between the I am ego D3 mind and the I am body D2 mind and the I am element D1 mind has kept those levels of mind apart. Those levels of mind, the I am bands they're called, have to do with certain sets of sub-frequency bands in each of the 3 dimensions. So you have on the D1 level, you have the I am element consciousness, and they always happen, these bands of frequency always happen between the first sub-frequency band and the 3.5 level. So up to the third, between the third and fourth sub-frequency bands in each dimension that has 12 sub-frequency bands, it would be the 3.5 level and down that holds that level of conscious awareness. So we're going to progressively open up each set of those. On the D2 level, the I am body consciousness, which is the cellular atomic body consciousness, where the D1 one is the elemental, which gets into subatomic particle consciousness of your own self. And this is parts of you that are manifest as those things. Then you have your D3 atomic level, which is your D3 conscious mind that you know, that looks down on and sees the D2 body as solid. That's your I am ego, which is also directly associated with your I am epigenetic overlay, because it controls your epigenetic overlay. That signals how your genes are going to work on the D2 level. And then there's the I am God self level. All right, this is your level of God self, your density 1 level of God self consciousness. That is like the big level of being in this open space that's beyond space and time, that just understands all of it. It's an amazing state of consciousness. We began opening our D3 level, our mental body level, to the density level, our I am God self level, in the Slide 1 workshop. In order to do the techniques that are in the Slide 2 workshop, there has to be a quick run through the 22-step technique that was used in Slide 1, because the activations in the field from the Slide 1 course have to be done before you can do the set of activations that are in the Slide 2 set. So we're going to do those early on. That's where we have the preparatory techniques. We're going to run through just these. The most important one is this one and this one, I believe. Yeah. So I still have to we have most of this done already from the last workshop, but a lot of it was done live, which means I have to go back through the transcripts. Thank God somebody did the transcripts. And where I say, okay, step 1 was what, step 2 was what, and circle it, because I talk a lot in between it when I'm running them live. So we will get through these so we can begin the process of the techniques that will directly open your own body to the slide ability process. Down in here, we have, we'll talk more about the energetic polarities of the physical body and the voice and the grail. Now, there's inorganic polarities of the physical body. We've been talking about this on all of the different levels, from light body, etc., for ages now. But they come into literally a split in the natural light body fields that splits the dimensional Ajay body levels, and it creates the duality of the energy flows and of the consciousness. So it gives you like the, angel on your shoulder, devil on the other shoulder, that kind of effect with your consciousness, but it also applies to your atoms as well. There's a natural part of our own spiritual body consciousness that comes in and literally tethers to and binds to form the atomic structure. Is called the jari. The jari is a natural configuration of the portion of our spirit body that literally comes in and binds with some of the mana from the light body to literally form the atoms. So it's the jari is a part of our spirit directly bound to our atoms, our D2 atoms, our D1 atoms, and our D3 atoms. But the jari is a natural thing. When you have the the light body structure and the part of the dimensional Ajay body structures brought into polarity, where it should be one sphere and it's actually broken into two and put into a Vesica Pisces phase lock, that creates another force out of atoms, where it creates not only have part of it is still your jari, that's your own natural spirit bound in, but the part of the jari gets hijacked and it becomes something called the jarosh, where it actually, because its polarities get reversed, it gets bonded to other things from the planetary elemental field that do not belong in the body whatsoever. And this creates a form of matter that is called mani, which is reversed matter. Its polarities are different. It bonds differently to substances. It's a perversion of the natural structure of atoms, which should be the jari part, the spirit part, would bond with the mana. So you would be made of jari and mana. Instead, a part of our bodies are made of jarosh, which is the reverse jari, and mani, which is the reversed matter that has other stuff stuck onto what would normally be your mana. This is what kills our bodies. It's also what hijacks our spirits. So we're going to talk more about how that polarity works in the body. We're going to talk about the voice, and why that song, The Voice, was so important too, was I'm sure the man who wrote it had his own version or idea of what the voice is, and I'm sure it was very spiritually inspired. And I haven't talked to him, but I would imagine just because it's such a spiritually inspired sounding song. But when we are talking about the voice, we are talking about literally the eternal consciousness that is alive in the cells. We are talking about the voice of the jari. We are talking about learning to be able to hear the voice of your own embedded in body spirit, and how once you can enter the space, which is called the Grail space or the Grual space, of where you can communicate in direct cognition directly with that voice. First, you will learn to hear the voice. Then you will learn to be at one with it, which means you become the voice. Once you get to that point, you can work, which means your D3 mind and your body consciousness can work to reclaim the parts of your own natural jari that have been taken into reversal, and to set free the parts of the jarosh that never belonged in your pattern in the first place. And that is a thing that needs to occur before a physical body will ever be capable of slide. We need to reclaim our jari and release the parts of the mani matter that don't belong there. They go off as basically dust, and like probably skin cells and things too, I would imagine, that don't belong there. And then bring back our own mana. We reclaim our own mana. And once we get those fields put back together, which is what these techniques do, then we can go on to the next levels of things which in the next workshop, I believe, we will integrate the Rasha level. We've talked about our Rasha bodies, our dark matter bodies, where we will put that online as well with the rest. And that will make us, I guess, fully slidable. When we're going to be able to start going, yo, blink off, love it, even to begin just splitting and say, hi, I know I'm in two places. I'm not sure when we're going to start experientially having this, but I think this particular workshop is very significant in it, because at least as far as the bilocation part goes, with the activations done in the Grail activations, I'll call them collectively, in this workshop, you will be able to pull a portion of or not pull it, but like say, come on, want to go? Let's go for bilocation with your jari, and move from the space as your jari consciousness, and literally move part of yourself out and project it to someplace else you might like to go, like say to go visit Median Earth or something. So we're going to it will deepen the experience of the mental projections that we've done. We were taking part of the mental body atomic structure. We will start to begin to be able to take the physical body atomic structure, at least part of it. And the process of releasing the jarosh part and the mani is not something that just happens once. All right, because every time you breathe, your body makes more of both, because the planet makes more of both. So you'll fix the thing in your field and it will hold, but the planet is still sending in a part of the reversal. So the reversal will go back in again, but what these techniques will do is get you where you will learn, your body will be taught how to transmute it again, so it transmutes it back. So it begins the process, which will be a perpetual process, of your body allowing the mutation to come in and then turning it back around and reclaiming. And that is why they're going to give us like the daily, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever, where we have little bits of things that we can do. where you don't have to do all these long techniques all the time or anything, but that will give the body that support to progressively build up. It's basically building up the ability to transmute that particular reversal as it runs in the body. You fix it, it'll unfix. You fix it again, it'll unfix. So it will eventually it will go on autopilot if we use them. But that eventually is probably not going to be before 2012. So it's putting us on basically where the body will move into its self-healing application with that. That yes, the fields will still split again because of the effect of the planetary fields, because they are split. But then our bodies will have the ability to pull themselves back together again and transmute off that level. But right now the bodies are running at a deficit with that. We have all these years that our bodies have been growing and building up the reversed level. So there's a lot of the reversed matter to clear out before you just worry about going on maintenance. Hi, I'm all late now, that kind of thing. So it is a healing process. It is a progressive healing process. It is worth it whether you're planning to slide out or whether you're planning to bardo out, because higher in frequency and the more light quotient you can build, natural light quotient, you can build in your body, whichever way, will determine where you can go. At the end of the workshop, they gave me this one bizarre chart, because I can't believe you're going into this right now. We were doing techniques, and they gave me this chart on, I can't even remember what they called it, but it literally broke down the understanding the light quotient of the body, how much of what's called Shalaya, which is the living light units based on the 3 Tribeca configuration, versus how much Shona light you have. There's a ratio of balance there, and depending on what that ratio is will depend on where you can go in your next destination, be it through slide or be it through the Bardo process. So there's a chart that we will look at that helps us understand a bit about that. They're going to develop that more. I don't have that with me right now, but that's for the end of the workshop. But all this it's going to be brought into a practical focus, and finally we're going to be able to go home with not only having excellent activations that took place in our bodies and that will hold, but that will continue on, and they will step up with the planetary grids with just a little bit of support from you of doing certain things once in a while to keep that activation going. So you don't have to go trying to figure out what set of techniques do I use now, or how many hours does that take a week, that kind of thing. It's not a long program, it's the long-term maintenance program, which means you get to have a life somewhere in there in between too, right? Because these techniques can take so long, and there's so many of them, sometimes it's like either have to give up the techniques or give up like having a normal life, answering the phone, going to work, eating, and we don't recommend ever doing that. So I really hope that you will find this an amazing workshop. I'm hoping we hold out to get through all these techniques, just to get them down. You'll be seeing both of us, both myself and Az, running different ones. Az will run some of them. I will be running some of them. So you'll be seeing both of us. I'm not just going to be holed up all the time up there getting charts and stuff. So sometimes we'll both be here, sometimes one or the other of us will be here. But you'll always be very much here with the beloveds, because the beloveds are definitely here with us. How long have I been in Babylon now? How long? Oh, I have? That's good. Because when I get on a roll, I'm talking really fast too, and I apologize for that, but there's quite a heat roll waving through, and I tend to go faster and faster and faster when the energy is really strong. I always want to make sure that I at least talked for as long as I was supposed to, because if it's published, we do try to keep to a schedule, and if you expect an hour, you're going to get an hour, or 10, or whatever, at least what was published. And when I get on a roll, it's like, go all the way through, and then all of a sudden, I was like, I don't have anything more to say. There's nothing more to talk about. That, like, the wave came and everything that had to be talked about, and it's like I hit that point. And I always hope that point is at least on or a little bit after the point that I said I was going to talk about. So I don't really have anything more to say. You're going to get these handed out if they did. Oh, you already got it. Okay, so you've got a copy of this, so it gives you knowing what the schedule is. You can read through a little bit more about the subject matter that we're going to talk about, and the next time we will meet will be, thankfully, tomorrow for me. Starts at 2, right? Instead of 10 in the morning like the other one, right? I have a very busy night. I have to somehow get past number 4 on this set and into the 4 of them that go with Sundays, but we'll get there. So we will see you at 2 o'clock tomorrow, and we'll do the session 1 lecture, Planes of Creation, Time Windows, and the Holy Grail and Doorways. I hope you enjoy being here. What's that? Oh, yeah. Thank you for being here. Somebody want to read that? You want to read that? Okay. Somebody have to read something.
Just to remind everybody, we'll have orientation at 11:11 and ordinations at 12:12. And on Sunday, we will have ordinations at 9:30 a.m. We look forward to welcoming everyone to support the Shield and the Crystal River Circle following that. Thank you.
Night, everybody. Have a good night. See you tomorrow. Hello, everybody, and thank you for your patience in the time shift. Right? The reason we backed it up for this particular day was when I do schedules. Usually, I just allot about 2 to 3 hours for the subject material because I never know what's going to come through. And because this one was so technique intensive, I'm literally still getting the written forms of the techniques that are. We have the ones for today, but the ones for tomorrow. So there's really this one was only about an hour's worth of presentation. So it was better to put the energy into getting the techniques for tomorrow all typed up and ready. Because if they're not typed up and ready, I can run them just live off the top of my head. But because they come through on a wave that I don't remember afterward either, right? But when we do it that way, you won't be able to take them home with you. And the idea is to be able to let you take them home with you so you can use parts of them or once in a while all of a long run. So you have the Daily Grail program that will make it simple for you to use the technologies that will help help prepare the body for slide once you leave the workshop. So it was better to just use that time. We could have come in and I could have spoke for an hour and then said, well, this is all the information we have for this particular block, and go away for a while and then come back. That would have been kind of silly. So as far as the program goes, I'm sure we're going to get enough hours in between now and Monday morning when we leave, seeing all the techniques that have to be done tomorrow as well. I could have tried, I wanted to put one of the other sets of techniques from tomorrow up into the slot for earlier this afternoon, but I couldn't do it because they're all in a sequence. You have to have the thing on the bottom of the page one done before you can do the other ones that are techniques on the other page. So I couldn't juggle the program around. So that's why we backed it up to this point. So it doesn't really mean we're off schedule. It just means that this particular lecture was covering material that wouldn't take 3 hours to cover. Is basically what we're going to cover in this one is the object of this particular lecture session is to get us to the point where we understand what the planes of creation are, the time windows, and the Holy Grail doorways. So we're going to cover some graphs that some of them we saw in the last workshop. We're going to cover new material on them and some of the catch-up material just to, get the orientation to what are the planes of creation, where are we in relation to those, what does that have to do with TIWA fields, whatever they are, because if you weren't at slide 1, you might not know what a TIWA field is. And so we're going to cover some of that material and then bring it to the point of one of the graphs we had from before, but they showed me on it where these doorways are, or these windows and doorways are. And this is the information that we need before we go into the technique blocks. We need to have a conceptual understanding of what part of our field's involved, what do they do. In the techniques, right after we do this session, we will go into the preparatory techniques because they need to be done and set in the field for a while before you can go into the new level of techniques. So that will be, again, somewhere between 5:30 and 5:45 and 6:30. We will do it as we'll run the preparatory technique set. So my job in the middle of this, before this, is to start speaking about the planes of creation and the time windows and doors. And that I will do that. Once after dinner, we will come back and we are going to stick to the program as it is. If there's any time left, just in case it doesn't take till midnight to run the first, I think it might, or it might even go over. But if there's time left in the Psi Interactive session number for Technique 1 at the end of the evening, what we'll try to do, and we're going to try to get the paper copies to you by this time, if we can, if it works out that we can get them run. So we could start a little bit early on the song sets for tomorrow, so you get familiarity with the songs, with Sushi's songs, and so you know the words and have the words, so you can play with them, when you go to sleep, or when you go home tonight or back to your room, you'll at least have the information. So we're going to try to squeeze that in at the end. It doesn't mean we won't have the full session in the morning. We're going to. The best case scenario is if we had a half hour extra here, tonight, we could probably get the take a half hour out of that and get everybody here at 10:30 instead of 10, which every half hour counts in my world when we're on workshop. So we'll see how that works out. But we are going to try to get you the song sheets and do at least a once-through run on, like, listening to the CD, over the whatever they do, the intercom or whatever, so you can hear these songs that are going to be used in tomorrow's joining with the Global Healing Event celebration of the Requiem. And then tomorrow we have one of the most fully loaded programs I've ever seen, because we have the really, really long technique runs on that day. Some of them As will do, some of them I will do. And when we go home tonight, I have to get the last 4 of the hydroacoustic ones done, because they didn't even give those to me yet. So it's going to be, if I look tired now, I'm going to look even worse tomorrow, so just ignore it. Right? But, so, as far as speaking about the planes of creation, the time windows, and the Holy Grail doorways, this has to do with simply understanding both on the planetary level and about our own fields, because again, the planetary level of the planet's spiritual, mental, emotional body structure, light body structure, is the same on a larger level as our own. So it means the planet has Tiwa fields and Grual fields and the Jandas field and the Jadaz field and all of that. When we're talking about these particular words that we're studying now as part of the Ajay body anatomy, they correspond just to the density 1 level. So we know we have 5 density levels going up. So we also have these much larger fields that later we'll probably learn to activate. Right now, all of the work that we've done before, literally all of it, through all of the programs we've done, we're required to create the level of biofield activations in ourselves and in a critical amount of people within the Aquafarian shield before these particular techniques could be run. And these are the ones that we've really been waiting for, because they will open what is called first the Grual window, or the Grail window, and then the Grail door. And the Grail door corresponds to more than just the D2 level. It is actually the opening of, first you have to open the D3 level, what's called a Tiwa window. And that is what we did in the Slide 1 workshop. That is what will happen if you were in that workshop. It will be done again in the preparatory techniques. So we had the D3 level open. That was the first level that had to be open, because on the surface levels that controls D2 and D1 coming down. But in D2 level, which is the Grual door or the Grail door, that actually has a way that you can go through and into the core program, where we actually get to see and read the hydroacoustic program as symbol and light. And we had to have 3 open to even get to the point where we could open 2. And we're going to open the second window, and then the Grail window. And there's a whole set of steps to do this, right? There's the technical techniques that open the Grail window. Then it now enables us to go into this fascinating state called the Grail state. This is one of the longest techniques there is. It's like a journey and a heavy technique combined together. So you get certain spots, you get certain spots where you can stop a little bit, but not like go run away and take a break for a half hour or anything. So it's going to be a long run one. I've not touched these states since I've been in body until they started running the transmission for the technique down, and the steps would do a subharmonic activation in my field as I was taking it down. And the states are really, really neat. I can't even describe them, but there's a particular state that it starts to open in your consciousness. It's your God Self state when you open the D3 window, which is kind of like up here. It's like a field. It actually opens, and you can kind of feel a space open around your head, as if that's the space that if you have like a near-death experience, or if you have a full Bardo experience, that is where you go, and it gives you a perspective of being able to see your entire life beyond time, where you're not stuck in time anymore. It's very big, open type space where you have just a lot of cognition. You have direct cognition of all sorts of things. It's easy to understand things from that space. That comes with the D3 level, and we began that opening. We opened that space in the last workshop. So we'll get that, again, this one, which amplifies it every time you use that technique. It brings more of that God Self consciousness in. But now we're going to go into the body consciousness. And if there's anything I've had a hard time with in this life, and so did the walkout. My walkout, she hated the body. She wanted to get out of it. She felt like she was trapped in it. And I just think, it can't be that bad. Yeah, right. Right? Boy, when I got all the way in, it's been a progressive battle with the body ever since. And I feel bad for the body a bit, because, don't mean to hate you, but I hate being in you, right? That kind of thing. This takes you into a place where we can blend, or we have to step down our D3 consciousness and bring it down into realm or the domain of where the body consciousness lives. And the body consciousness is made of various types of energy that are literally our own consciousness. When we come into fetal integration, we move ourselves into D1, 2, 3 in the density level of atomic structure. So there's a part of our spirit body called the jari that is bonded right into the atomic structure and the subatomic particles that make up the atoms, that make up the cells, etc. So there's this whole level of ourselves that because of the mutation in our bodies right now, we can't even tune into. And it doesn't tune into us very well either. That's why the body has a life of its own and a death of its own, and it decides to do what it wants no matter what you want it to do, and that kind of thing. And you have to get control of it. It's almost like you have to force your will on it, exercise it to death, and to keep it in shape and all of that. And that's a real nuisance. I mean, I got to the point where if I have to exercise, because they were sent to amp my flame, they had me on this cycle of exercising. I never introduced it to you guys because they never said that you needed to. And I was thinking, if we can spare these people this, it was taking 20 hours a week in the gym, right? Plus having a life and trying to do all the other stuff. I might have gone down to 110 pounds, which I've never been before. This body was never that scrawny as it went in a certain period of time when we were doing that. But I was just like, I can't live like this. People can't live having to do this just to control the body, for goodness sakes. And what we should learn with these techniques, and the techniques are like the teachers themselves almost, there's only so much that can be said about the states. Where the learning comes and the shifts come for you is when you can get into the states. And then you learn all sorts of stuff by feeling around in this new state of your own self, where you're learning to feel your D2 spirit level of consciousness. And through it, you will, if you learn to go into that space, which is one of the big technique. It's not going to be the last technique. It's actually a state that's needed to finish the last techniques. But it's going to be one of the longest, and it's one that's meant to be savored. Right? To go in and move in and then slow down and really stretch out and get to the point where, forget how long it's taking, that kind of thing. And get into, first, there's this amazing little space, and it is a little space that appears huge when you get into it. It's called the Caronatus seal, but when you get inside of it as your mini-me, it's amazing. And you can do all sorts of neat things there. We're going to go into that, and then after there, we go into a blend with the jari, literally the atomic jari. We learn to blend our consciousness with it. The place of the Caronatus seal is referred to as the changing room because it's where we change our state and the literal form that we are using to carry our consciousness into the same state as the jari. So we go back into where we lose the body image completely, lose track of the body image, and start moving as consciousness. And this is the state that you actually are in before you come into a body, before you get ensnared into the atomic structure and tethered to the baby body. So we're going to go back to that very primal state of pure consciousness, and from there, we can move into this really neat space that is called the Grual space. It's a very specific space in your field, but to get into it, you can't just push out here. There's a whole set of things you have to do to get in to the access point, and that point is called the Caronatus point. So the one technique 3, and that one is going to be run tomorrow because you don't want to run that at 10 at night when everybody's tired. Because it will get you so low into the alpha rhythms and take you lower and lower that if you're tired, you're gone. You won't remember. Once you got to a certain point, you'll just completely be gone and be snoring because it will take you, it'll make you sleepy to begin with because you're shifting brainwave patterns. You're going to be shifting them down into the alpha state deeper and deeper, moving actually toward theta. To stay awake in the sleep state is an interesting concept. It can be done, but it takes practice. So I'm excited about sharing with you that technique 3, particularly in the Grail sequence, because I wouldn't say I've made peace yet with my physical body, but I found the place where I can. And because I haven't finished the technique yet either, but I found that place, the state that I have not been able to touch while in body. And it's a place where it's like a forgiveness space where you forgive your body for everything it feels like you feel like it's doing to you, and you start to understand a bit more about what it is, and actually that even in its mutated condition, there's a beauty to the consciousness there. Once you get to be able to move in and out of that state, where you can go into the Grual state without having to go through like 50, 60 steps, because once you get that set and practice once in a while the long run, you'll be able to get in there faster and faster to the point where eventually you can just pop in and spread out into that state. which is what all of these techniques are meant to do. Give you the long run until it gets set in the field. Then you can, it'll be an autopilot real fast at the will, at the intention. But when you get into the state, it's the most healing space that I have ever found. And I find something quite fascinating, that the little bit, because I haven't run it, right? It's only run it subharmonic through me enough where I could take it down on the computer, to get the technique. So I haven't fully run it. But even just that gave me enough of touching the space where I realized that I could communicate with my atoms. I realized that I actually experienced them as alive and very, very conscious. I realized there were vast amounts of knowledge that the body itself stores. And all sorts of, you can ask when you get in that state, ask your Jari, your D2 level Jari spirit, if it will help you to read your incarnational record. It has direct access to it, those kind of things. You can read your body space. We're going to be taught how to do that actually tomorrow toward the end, where we learn how to use the hydroacoustic technologies to go into that state, linking with the body consciousness to do scans from the inside out. So we can find areas in the body that need the most help and begin to use certain direct energy techniques from that state. So it's literally going to teach us how to move the consciousness out of its kind of embedded focus in 3D linear beta thought wave patterns and into a state that is much more natural. This is just the beginning of learning to be able to have almost like an emotional, spiritual love affair with the earth itself, because even though the earth is in a rather dire state as far as its fields and things right now, it is still a living, not quite breathing consciousness. Its atoms still breathe, but its whole system of breathing does not work properly anymore. It's on a respirator called the host in the Ensign Station Passage, but it is still a living, conscious entity. When we learn to go into the Grual state, with ourselves, and you have to get pretty good at it first yourself, then you can expand that into that same level of the earth, and that's where you can hear earth speak most loudly. And the speaking that takes place is, you can get a translation of what the earth is saying, but it loses something in the translation. This is direct cognition experience, where you just go into the state. When you get into those states, it's like, I don't want to do any more techniques. I just want to stay here. I don't care what happens to my body, but you can't go there. It's tempting, though. It's tempting to say, I just like it here so much. As far as being in body, just let's say, hi, body, you stay there. I'm going to stay here and just not wake up again, go into that place. But you're not asleep. You're more awake, actually, than you are here. This is a place where you will develop microvision, which is the ability to see inside atoms. And once you have the space turned on, you don't have to take a technique to run yourself all the way down there to get there, where you can start reading atoms and things. You'll actually be able to project your consciousness and move it into atomic structure. You'll be able to, you wouldn't need a microscope. You could go in and actually look at a body. You could find like diseases and viruses and those kind of things and combat them right there at their own level, or help heal something without combating. If it's a virus, it doesn't belong in there, right? You can find out why it's there, why it's visiting, and how to help it go home wherever that is. It's not you, those kind of things. So this is the beginning of opening what has almost been the Pandora's box of torture, which are our bodies. Can't live with them, can't live without them kind of relationship that we've had. So I will begin speaking about this by speaking about the planes of creation in general. This is an old diagram that we've looked at before that showed us the proportions of when we talked about the 15 Jaleesic layers of the Rasha body structure that later outpicture into the light body structures that gives us the 15-dimensional layers of our auric field. Within that whole field, if you look at say the planet's field is this, it gives you the proportional measurements, actually. Like if this is this size, that implies this would be this size, this would be this size. Each of the layers would be a certain size. This was the key to the vertical maps that we have learned where the planes of Earth are, because we are on Earth, and it will help to know when we're projecting and when we're moving and when we're opening certain fields in our own bodies. These fields correspond to those same exact bands in the planetary body. So it helps you to understand a bit more of your context when we talk about Tewa fields and all of this, where that context is in relation to the planet that we're living within its bubble, because it's a bubble. It looks like we're walking around on it. We're only walking around on the solid part that happens, where are we? L6. Wait a minute. This one's a little confusing because it's actually showing the rotation grids where you can't see the embedding levels. So that's actually the top of it when you take it into the vertical map. So put the next one up, honey, please, the vertical map. it's easier to talk about. And that, but that just shows the proportions, and they're formed by the spiraling of the Cathara grid that literally creates how big the layers will be in between each other. When you bring it into where you can see the top of the Cathara grid, this would be the density level Cathara grid. This would be the D3 level. Inside of that here would be the D2 level, and then a smaller one, the D1 level. And it implies that there are 4 levels of embedded spheres within spheres, each with 15 Jaleesic layers in the Rasha pattern and 15-dimensional structure on the outside pattern. If you notice, these go up to the 12th layer, so you have 13, 14, and 15 for each layer would be blending into the next layer up. Right, but this shows you the proportionals. This is how we derived the vertical maps. Once you have the correct proportions of one set of the 15, then you just shrink them down into the proper proportions between them, where the Cathara grids fit this way, so you end up with 4 sets of 15 on the Rasha body, but also on the fields that are like the planetary fields. These are also how your own fields are structured. So your D2 body would be in, there's a Cathara grid in here. I didn't put it on here, I just hinted where it would be, so I didn't make it so you couldn't see anything else. But that would be the domain of where your physical body is manifesting. You'd have your mental body in the D3 level, and you'd have your density level body, where your I am God consciousness space is, and your full density 1 Ajay body, Ajay hydroacoustic body, would be in this realm, actually from here into here. So when we start looking at Tiwa fields and Jada's fields and Grual fields and finding out where they fit within this plane structure, it helps to remember what the plane structure is to begin with. And we are like little planets unto ourselves. These are the vertical maps of the planets. They're called vertical maps because if you just take a cross section of this, put a dot on each place where one of those spheres crosses through the staff line going up, right? You can take it and draw a straight line over, and it will show you the stack of the planes, and that the vertical stack of the planes going up, and that's how we got the vertical maps. Next one, please. This is showing the vertical maps of Earth. These are still rough. I haven't had time to do them because they take ages to get the proportions right and everything, but it's showing you in relation to that, if this is the density level, I didn't show the Cathara grids on this one, but on each one of these Cathara grids, and this goes for your fields as well as for the planetary fields, where you see this crossbar, right, which would be the Raja shield, that implies that this one, these bands, you have the bands and the spans between the Jaleesic layers and between the light layers, the light body layers, this would be 9.5, all right? And 9.5 is always the crust, right, or the skin. So the crust here, this is the crust of the D3 grid that you would see, and that is where the D3 mental planes would be, where you're actually, that's where, these are where there's distorted portions of the D3 ones, that's where people end up in those review loops where they don't realize they lost their physical body and they're stuck in what looks like another hologram, just like the hologram they were in, but a little bit different, and they don't remember that they actually passed over, and those kind of things. Down here is where you would have, in relation to the D3 mental planes, you have what would be the D2 level of the crust, and that's what we're walking on here. So going up this way is what would be Earth's atmosphere, and going down this way is what's underneath our feet, going down through the crust into the core and all of that. This whole structure of the vertical maps I wanted to remind you of, because when we see the corresponding diagrams that go with the Tiwa fields and the materialization fields, let's call them, when I refer to all of them, they're the materialization fields, because that's where atoms actually materialize. They correspond to these. I won't show you all of these stuck to all of those because you won't be able to tell what lines are where, and it makes it too confusing. So if we can remember that this Rasha body structure of the planet is actually smaller. You'd have a small version of this on the Rasha level, and it manifests outward as the basic set of planes, which you have the four-dimensional sets, basically. You have 1, 2, 3 dimension, and then the big density level one of the interwoven 15 plane sets. And then we have certain parts of each of those will hold the materialization fields. So I just wanted you to have these in mind when we go into looking at the diagrams that talk about the materialization fields, and they'll show them in a circle, but they show them in a way where they apply to your body, but they also apply to the planet. And we'll get onto that in a minute. Next one, please. Just want to remind you of the vertical maps and how they look. Oh, the vertical maps are simple this way, where you just take the main set of planes. Can I see the top, please? Thank you. Where you have the D1 level, D2 level, D3 level. All right, these are the main dimensional planes, and this shows each of the 15 geodesic layers of their Asha bodies, but also of their light body plane stack. And when you bring them all together, you end up with this, where you can identify very specific fields of various different things. We'll look more at those fields and what's up with them when we talk about the bigger planetary stuff tomorrow. But I just wanted to remind everybody of how these maps came to be, what they're formed from. But it gives you a stack as far as knowing what's in the core, where are we in relation to all this as far as what we're walking around on here on the surface, and also when you go all the way up to the top, where Eartha is in relation to it. Somewhere in these maps you would also have median Earth and Ashale 3, which we've talked about before. When you leave our net Earth space, it went somewhere up in here before you've got to the Adashi temples up on Eartha, which is an M31 interface. You would actually have the median Earth, which is the ascension Earth, and that's the first place we're going to slide to. So these maps come in very handy for various things. One is to understand how your own body fields work, because you have a vertical map yourself. You have these same structures within your body. And we are working with the D2 level of them, which would be the one over here. We are working with this level now. We opened up the TIWA windows, and at some point, if I ever have time, it's not going to be in this workshop, but I would be able to plug in the TIWA windows and things that you see. The TIWA windows would be here. The Gruol windows would end up on this, somewhere in this set of vertical going up lines, and we would be able to plot them all on this as far as the planetary ones, and even as far as our own body ones. But what we're going to focus on in this this weekend's workshop is more so the personal ones, because it is the personal ones we need to be able to move into a state of oneness with before we will be able to access the larger planetary fields and those kind of things. Next one, please. This is just reminding you of, I believe Noel did this from my messy maps. He actually did the clean vertical map. These have been out, I believe, they were out somewhere, aren't they? Aren't they published somewhere? These were given out somewhere, weren't they, a while back? I thought they were. Were they? Yeah, I thought they were, yeah. Okay, so these are just showing the clean version of the vertical maps that actually shows the different interfaces of planes. You can tell where that is in relation to where we are by where the Van Allen belts are. And this is, I'd have to get my glasses up and all to do that. This is just beyond the outer Van Allen belt, right? So you can tell how far up in the atmosphere. Here's the Van Allen gap, which means the outer Van Allen's up this way and the lower one's down this way. Down here we have, where are we in the D2 field? We've got the ozone layer, right? All right, so that's where our ozone layer is. This is where our surface Earth is. This is where the big crystal mantles are, actually, that have smaller versions of the Adashi temples in our own. You moved it. Right? Earth going up. Right? This is where we'd have the subterranean. There's literally subterranean bands of where you have cities, underground cities, but they're under. Because they're in different plane structure, you can't see them from here. You have etheric cities going down to here. We have our aquifers. You also have aquifers going up. So there's certain points when we go into projections, we go through certain levels of Earth atmosphere with certain things activated in our fields that have different angular rotation and particle spin, and we would actually come up in water somewhere else. And that somewhere else would be median Earth, for example. That would be the first stop going up. So there are different layers of matter applied to each of these. D1 is an etheric matter base. D2 is a telluric matter base. D3 is atomic matter base. And the density level is what's called a catheric matter base. And each of those have a different proportion of how much is made of spirit energy and how much is made of manifestation energy, or how much is made of ire and how much is made of mane or mana energy. And it gives a different type of matter quality. All right? So all of these things, we've covered these before, but if we can remember these in connection to the things we will learn about the TIWA fields and the Ajay body structure, it'll be helpful, because to make the link mentally, if you just see the Ajay body diagrams, they kind of float around, like, oh, okay, yeah, you got these big star-shaped things up there somewhere, and yeah, okay. If we bring them into this context, it will help to understand. So you kind of look up in the sky and go, okay, up there in the ozone, there's that band. We'll be able to see where those bands of consciousness we're speaking about, and bands where, under normal circumstances, atoms would be literally manufactured through the living body system. We'll get an idea of where they are. Next one, please. This is just showing the mess of the vertical maps on Earth. This is a really messy one, but it shows where the net bands are. These are the control bands that are literally running disharmonic frequency as a frequency fence net that controls our D1 or D2 and our D3 levels of our DNA. It controls the D2 DNA, it controls the DNA template on the D1 level, and it controls what's called the epigenetic overlay on the D3 level. Each of those levels of the net correspond to one of the three levels of consciousness that we were talking about. The D3 level of what we call the epigenetic overlay band, or the ego band, corresponds to the three-dimensional focus of attention that is our what we know is our waking state of consciousness. So literally there is a net field that controls that. There's a net field that controls the D2 telluric level, which means our physical body, and then there is one that controls the etheric template underneath. So as we're working with the technologies that we are getting now, we are actually going to be able to start freeing the physical body, not just the mental body, from the structures that the nets actually hold into the body. We will look at those structures this evening when we do this evening session. This is just to show, to get everyone familiar with the format of the Ajay body structures and the materialization planes within the context of the things that we already know. So we're going to look at the good stuff, not the bad stuff, in this part. Then we will do the technique, and the technique set that is the pre-technique set. And then when we come back after dinner, we will go into looking at the messes that are caused in the body. Now, in the Slide 1 workshop, we worked to release something called the caduceus within the body, which we'll look at more this evening. And that was on the D3 level because we opened the D3 window, but we couldn't take the caduceus structure fully out of the D2 body yet. That will come with this workshop, and that is literally a lifesaver in many of our cases, because you'll see what it is. It's a very nasty structure that is controlled by the nets. And it's the nets on the planet that are creating the nets in our body. But the fact that we have the nets in our body, it makes our bodies create unnatural atomic structures, and we release them into the atmosphere, which helps to contaminate Earth and feed the reversals in the nets. So we're actually being used as atom generators, as twisted atom generators, when we're supposed to be able to generate our own atoms. We're not supposed to. It's not as if like God looks down and said, "Oh, there's a bunch of atoms floating around there. I think I'll put them together like clay and make a person." Right? No, we get a borrowed quantum from the two parents. All right, their light bodies contribute, just like there's an egg and a sperm, and they each have a piece of light body structure that's called and they come together and they form what's called the Vibhati sac. And from that is our donated quantum of energy. It's also the part we have to release from ourselves when we transition in Bardo or when we fully ascend. But that part, we bring our consciousness into and begin the process of expanding outward into the body at a certain point called fetal integration. We take over the physical growth process of the body. We don't grow. We are not in the body when it first forms. It's moving around. It has its own body consciousness that was part of the donated cell. But we don't come in until the 33rd through 56th day is the earliest time after conception that a new spirit can come into that body. So all that's there is the bit of donated quantum of light body structure, not spirit, light body energy, mana, that was donated by the parents. So there's a whole lot of things. If we understand these, it makes it pretty easy of what to vote for or what not, that kind of thing. No, you're not killing a baby if you actually get an abortion, for example, if it's before the 33rd to 56th day period, right? Before that, you have a living body structure. It is composed of the consciousness field and the energy field of the donated quantum from the parents. That will eventually, that part of the quantum will actually go back to the parents eventually once the whole body grows up and ascends and transfigures its atoms and molecules into its own natural structure. It will give that back to the parents. It will be released as dust, Vibhati dust, and it will go back to wherever the parents are, living or dead. It will go back as their quantum. But anyway, all right, they're interrupting me, so they want me to go into something else. We'll get into, all right, we don't want to have to get into fetal integration too much here because we did cover it in the first one and we got a very long dissertation in paper on it, so it's in the package from the first workshop, but it explains pretty much the fetal integration process, the point at which the new spirit consciousness, the new identity, comes in to the baby body, and then from that point continually expands itself out into the baby body to grow it. That's when it takes over cellular process. That's when the new spirit takes over cellular process. Before that, what if a child in the womb dies before that point of fetal integration, there is no other spirit stuck in the mother's field at that point. But there would be one stuck in the mother's field, say if you had late-term abortion and those kind of things, and fetal integration happened to have happened. You will have, it adds to the karmic thing. You will have to, that child will have to be born either in this life or another because it will stay with you. That spirit is tethered to you, and it will stay with you until it can be freed through having its own body to come into. So there's a lot of political issues attached to learning about the structures of how the natural body structures do work. But we're not going to do fetal integration much here. What I wanted to get back to is getting to understand, remember, that the planes that we have and the planes of existence that we have here have a specific structure to them, specific functions, specific types of atomic energy, and so do our bodies as a micro version. Next one, please. When we were studying, way back when we were studying the Rasha body structures of the dark matter template, we learned about the basic states of matter that were created starting in the Rasha body and its processes, started forming the basic Jalesic radiation sparks that come together to form the different types of matter, where you have 5 primary types. You have what's called the ethers, the plasmos, magnos, hydros, thermos, and electros. They are the primary states. There's a whole process that these primary states of dark matter energy turn into and become the atomic energy, the atomic structures that are on the outside. They take on a light body component, which is different than your dark matter body. That's the light body, mana body. And they take on a bit of jari, which is spirit body, quantum. So these are the basic states. I just wanted to remind you of those, that they existed, because we've covered in other workshops more extensively. So I'm not going to read every little thing on the diagrams. It takes forever that way and bores most people that have heard it 10 times. What those matter structures, those 5 primary states of matter and the 15 states that they create in the dark matter thing, they come out to be our atomic chart. But it's an interesting process by which they materialize. So there's a difference between manifesting. Manifesting is when energy first starts to come out and be available to become materialized. Materialization occurs through certain processes that have to do with the Ajay body structure. And literally it is through the Ajay body structure of the planet, of the sun, of ourselves, that we manufacture our own atoms. And it is a part of our anatomy that science has no idea exists, because right now to observe it, you can't tell. Because right now our bodies manufacture perverted atoms. They actually bond to stuff from distorted atoms that are in the planetary fields and bring them in and form an unnatural form of matter called mani. And that is what, if we are going to heal our bodies, we have to release the mani matter and turn our matter back around to its natural state of mana matter. So in understanding that the atomic structure literally of the universe is created through huge structures like this. The cosmos has an Ajay body. It has the same type of structures, and it's massive. And every little galaxy has the same thing. Every little universe has the same thing. Every little person has the same type of structure. And we are all, when our bodies are working properly, we are all the generators of literally hydrogen, helium, the whole atomic chart. And there are certain ones that are generated in certain dimensional bands, which means certain types of, like say, density 1 matter would be composed of primarily this type, like say these particular elements. It would have traces, subharmonics of all the other ones, but it would have a primary dominant set of atoms. So there's a lot to understand when it comes to this. Our job here isn't to teach master's physics classes. I would have to go and get a master's physics degree before I could translate it into, translate this information into that language. But if we can understand the concepts, if we are physicists, it's very helpful, because if you can realize that yes, these structures actually, the structures that physicists study and scientists study, these are actually being manufactured and created through the structures we're describing. And as far as how that happens, we'll give you the basic idea of how that happens I figure the scientists can go and figure out how every little thing translates down, because the rest of us would like to just understand how to get empowered co-creative control back with our body forms, how to be able to choose the destiny we want in evolutionary terms. If we want to ascend, how we can do that, to realize it's not just some flippant little word that the religions dangle around and promise you they're going to do, but they have no idea how to do it anymore because all the books were lost. Those books taught these things. So, anyway, atomic chart. We have our own version of the atomic chart with 144 natural elements on it. All right, next one, please. I'm looking at these now just so you see where they fit kind of like in the system of, yes, it goes right down to the atoms we're dealing with, because later we're going to look at how they plug in with the axiotonal lines that run in the body and those kind of things. All right, this is the version. It's still rough. Can I see the bottom, please, Annie? Bottom. This is the Allurian table of elements, and it literally shows that each one of these would represent an axiotonal line, or what is called an Allurian chamber line. Now, they're showed in a vertical linear format here, but these actually correspond. Each one of these chambers would be one of the Allurian chambers, or Allurian atomic creation chambers, that in the spherical form of our body, or the planet's body, they stick out like rays, like a 12-pointed ray set. So this is just showing them, if you take those rays and what's on them, what's on each of them, you would start out with this. These are the primary 12 families, right? And they go from hydrogen up to magnesium, right? Now, from those families, this would be one chamber line. There's a whole set of children that emerge from it. And there's also a set of parents that created the whole line in the first place. We can start to see how this works when we look at the structure of the Auger hydroacoustic body. But each one of these, and there's the thing that they just introduced in the last Slide 1 workshop, where you can tell all sorts of atomic conversions, not just conversions on like one level, but there's what is something on the D2 level will be something different on the D3 level. So if you have, say, hydrogen on the D2 level, it might be oxygen. It isn't, but it might be oxygen on the D3 level. It might be something else on the density level, something else on the D1 level. There is a way to tell if it's this in D2, it's that in D3, it's that in the density level, it's that in D1, by understanding the structure of the hydroacoustic body and the three dimensions within it and within the larger density level body. But each of these would correspond to an axiotonal line in your body, the natural run of what atoms they should actually be running, what atomic energies they should actually be running. And there's a way to tell where you go, okay, it's this family and that's in D3. And let's say if you're looking for, if you want to know, if you know something in D3 is, say it's that element, right, whatever that element is, say number 27, and you want to know what it is in D2. First thing you have to do is say, okay, this element is out of family number 3, family line number 3, and it's number 1, 2, 3, the third child of family 3, all right? And then you have the conversion that tells you, okay, if family 3 in D3 is this, in D2, what is it? Because it shows how the 12 primary families line up. So you would find, okay, let's say, and the numbers are wrong, I don't have them memorized, but say if it's family 3 in D3, it's family 5 in D2, which it isn't. But then you'd go, okay, what is the D2 correspondent to that one? You'd go, family 5, 1, 2, 3, third child. And you would find it. So there is a way to actually make literally atom by atom, the translations into understanding what each dimensional level of atomic structure is made out of. This gets really handy later when we start playing alchemists and want to learn what things should naturally bond together and say, I know that the big one is like, how do you make gold, right? You know, what do you do up here in D3 to make it transmute down as the element gold in D2. We're not going to learn how to make gold real fast because actually the natural structures, there are certain things that you cannot put together atomically in a test tube or in a laboratory. It's actually the body, the living body, when it is functioning properly, that allows for those elements to form and for them to bond naturally to what they're supposed to bond to form eternal life substances. One of the eternal life substances is what we've talked about for a while, which is called hydrolase, or living water. We're actually supposed to be able to manufacture that. Breatharian systems manufacture hydrolase. It's actually what they breathe. And hydrolase is on D3, H2O2, He3, I believe, and we have the translation on one of the charts of what it is in D2 level, which are the atoms our sciences see. And the fact is, right now, they don't bond naturally together. You can't make hydrolase in a laboratory. What we're doing with the technologies is not just opening these fields and these windows and doors. We're turning back on, piece by piece, the body's ability to, again, make hydrolase, where it can naturally generate those things. Because the body must be able to do what is called solar symbiosis, which is the process through which hydrolase is made. It allows for the chemical changes in the body that allow for the atom, the atomic structure, the cellular structure, to transmute, turn to light, and then remanifest itself somewhere else, which is what Stargate Passage or ascension is about. So the body must be able to generate at least a subharmonic level of hydrolase for us to be able to atomic slide. We can get a little bit of the bilocation slide happening without it, which we've been doing with the D3 level, but we need to turn on the D2 flows, the telluric physical body flows of hydrolase production. And the techniques that we will use in this workshop will begin that process. That'll be interesting to see. I'm kind of like, what does hydrolase feel like? And it's like, can you take it out and look at it under a microscope? I don't know. I don't know the answers to those questions yet. But I do know we are beginning the physical process now of getting the body, waking up the body's organic, but at the moment twisted ability to make natural substances, eternal life substances like hydrolase. And there are things we'll be able to do to support the body in that progressive process. It's not going to be, bang, zoom, and did a technique and got my hydrolase all running now and it's staying on forever and I'm perfect. No, this is a healing process. This mutation has been building in our bodies for the entire seeding of this race since the pre-Atlantean times in seeding 3, which we're a part of. It's not going to get fixed overnight, but the fact that it can still be fixed is amazing. And this is what we have been moving forward to get to, where we could finally anchor the beginning of the fix into the physical body structure, and that's what we're doing. So I just wanted to remind you of the atomic charts. We'll look at them more in relation to actually tonal lines and things later. Sorry. Next one, please. As we were learning in the last workshop, there is a process by which consciousness turns itself into atoms through these processes of the body and different our physical body has a key role to play in a part of this structure of how consciousness literally comes out into matter, outsteps into becoming atomic structure and form, conscious atomic structure. Right? And here, this particular state here, this set of them, these have to do with a set of steps that occur. And remember, you have your fetal integration point at one point. Once that fetal integration starts, this process of the body manufacturing elements begins. And the elements are not just thingies, the elements and the atoms that they will form. They're not just thingies. They are parts of your own consciousness, because your body, when you do fetal integration, it tethers your consciousness field that is held in the Ajay body directly to the new fetal pattern, and it begins spreading your consciousness out. And the way it begins spreading the consciousness out is it actually begins the process, what is called the translation sequence. This is where it translates, where consciousness translates through these pre-substance states. This set happens right in the physical body. And this is the part that has been blocked and twisted. We have something called the translation duct system in the body. There's a duct for D1, for D2, for D3, and for the density level, which connects into D4 and density 2, etc. Right? The duct that hydrolase is produced in is located in the fontanelle area, and it's a catheric duct, which means you won't find it by digging around in somebody's skull, because it is made of catheric energy. It is a pattern that is there, but you will not be able to find it with a telluric level microscope. Right? That duct was never opened in when we went through fetal integration, and it are the natural flows that would actually start with duct 1. Duct 1 is at the thymus, where the azare is. Duct 2, where it would go, where the consciousness would come in from there, and then it would step down into duct 2 at the end of the coccyx bone, in the tailbone. Then it would go up to duct 3 in the spleen. Then it would go up to duct 4 in the fontanelle. And then it would start the process of hydrolase production and go through a very complicated set of things through the blood and the bone marrow and all this kind of thing that would end up in the body producing celestalon, which becomes celestaline. That is the thing that we've talked about for a while, which is the transient element that allows for the atomic structure to turn to light for gate passage. There's a whole process by which, if this system is functioning normally, it would go through these processes. Then, after it gets freed from the physical body structure in a process that would actually bring the hydrolase to the skin, and it would separate into hydrose and ectose, and the ectose would become that white powder gold stuff they used to talk about in the Egyptian days, that the pharaohs used to like to kill people who could go through stargates to get it off their skin to try to make themselves be able to go through stargates, right? Is part of natural celestaline production, and the hydrose would begin. Hydrose is the carrier of prana. It would carry the prana from the body, send the prana out into the larger field, and then a mana stream would come out from the body, and the prana and mana would meet, and then this meeting place happens in the hydroacoustic body levels, and that is where something called the, if I can pronounce it right, I have to see the word written, pentagal, all right, it's PENTA-G, the little accent mark, EL. The pentagal circulations. These are each of the dimensional levels of a very particular type of how energy and prana and mana mix together and bounce around each other. Plus, there's other energies involved with it from the outer fields of the body, that through these processes, you actually end up with the formation of elements and matter that are already encrypted with an intention that tells them how to bond to form what. This is how thoughts actually manifest on the D3 level, where we actually send, there are always pulses of consciousness moving through us. Normally they move all the way from our spirit body and out through, but right now, because the bodies are mutated, it's just like a regurgitation system. But whatever original quantum of ourselves and our consciousness began this process, and then that got hijacked by the baby body that didn't have its fourth duct open, that we still have a circulation of that energy. And every time we breathe, and I think it actually happens several times for one breath, it's very fast, but there's a circulation of consciousness that goes. It takes whatever thought you have, brings it out, puts it through a version of the pentagal circulations that forms matter, and that actually manifests in your holographic bubble around you, the matter hologram you see and walk through. And part of that matter hologram is the physical body that you're in. So it is also the process of direct thought manifestation. Right now, we don't get to easily manifest what we want because part of our energy gets hijacked into the opposite expression. So it's like running around in a circle. We never get to the middle and stop and say, there, I was able to manifest that. You have to work hard to manifest things the way you want to here because of these twists in the Ajay bodies. So as we work with opening the windows and the doorways, we are going to progressively get returned to us our manifestation abilities too, our literally direct manifestation ability. There's a lot of stuff in the New Age movement that's been out for years that says, hold it in mind, visualize, and then let it go and it will come back. Well, it does, but they never explained how. They didn't explain that it actually, that's probably because they didn't know, that it actually formed, that thought actually sets the imprint. Your own fields generate the matter, the atoms that become the matter and fill out the pattern piece by piece on certain pulse rhythms that form as something comes into your experience as a manifest thing, and then eventually it moves out of your experience as the next pulse of manifestation comes through. So we're literally like walking forward and manifesting our hologram out in front of us, atomically speaking, not just as far as thought forms. Our thought forms become atomic structure, which was fascinating. I never understood that. That is the process of materialization, which is different than just manifesting energy. It is materializing it into physical, three-dimensional substance. So these are the processes that are involved with the Ajay bodies and the structures. I'm not going to go through every one of these either because this was published in the chart pack from the Sliders 1 workshop. And I might put it in. I have to see if they want this put in this one too or not. I have to see. This one's going to be big enough as it is because it's all techniques. So we'll see. But it is available already as soon as that Sliders 1 package is available. But it's taking you through these states. There's a shorter chart that summarizes this without all the heavy detail in between. But these are the states. From consciousness, it goes through pre-substance, 5 different states of pre-substance, right? Then it goes into 6 steps of the pre-substance compound, which is conscious hydroacoustic, which is different than acoustic. Acoustic comes later in as consciousness comes into manifestation. All right, this is protoplasm. This is the interior living water. It's a pre-substance living water. All right, and these are where we start to see the different names of energies we've been working with for a long time. Like we have like hydros and ectos and those kind of things. These are actually where these energy structures form through this process. It goes from the pre-substance state into the two pre-matter vapors, which is a vapor state. All right, so it goes from pre-substance consciousness plasms to pre-substance compound. So it's a compound. It actually starts big. It doesn't start small and then build up big. You have the consciousness comes in, goes through these state changes, and then becomes a compound pre-substance. And from that compound pre-substance, other things come out of it. That compound pre-substance is pre-substance hydrolase. That is the first pre-substance compound, and it is a compound, as opposed to just it's a compound element. Now, usually they say elements are things that get together to form compounds. Here it is talking about literally the first elements to form, or like here it's pre-substance element, but when it gets up to the substance layer, it is a compound element where it is composed of various things that when you break it down, you would get, this is wrong by the way, it's not ozone, it's molecular oxygen there. D3 level would be O2 He3. D2 is H2N3, which means 2 hydrogen and 3 nitrogen, right? But these are mixed together. Usually an element would be, say, hydrogen, right, or nitrogen. These are literally combined. They're compound. And that's something that doesn't manifest properly here on the planet because of the distortions in the planetary grids. Those compounds, those core compound substances do not manifest at this time. As we get our bodies back to being able to manifest them, we will bring, our bodies will bring a supply of that compound, those compound hydrolase pre-substance, but also the substance level of living water back to the planet, which will allow for some portions, at least a proportion of the planet, to have access to those things that can help portions of the planet to heal. There will still be a portion of the planetary grids that will be able to slide into a relationship with median Earth when the final separation comes in is 220 years when the host is done here, and that's when the full separation between the part of Earth that is falling and the part that is going into ascension will occur. But we're literally going to become life forms on the Earth that bring that healing substance back to the planet. Once we bring it back into our own body structure, we will be able to bring some degree of it back to the planet. We will also be able to transmit it when we do, healing facilitation sessions for others. And even without doing healing facilitation, you walk through the grocery store and you're going to be leaving it in the atmosphere every time you breathe, right? So it gives the other bodies a chance. If there's anything in them that can begin the process or holding a crisp frequency whatsoever, it will start giving them little bits of that. So they're going to teach us how to, first of all, get ourselves where we are much more healed than we are right now physically. But as we begin to be able to produce these compound elements again, hydrolase, we will be able to share it. And it's going to, that's as we get to the later slide programs, they're going to progressively go into more larger applications for ourselves personally, to raise it to the next level, but also outreach as far as how to move into assisting the world around you. First, like your friends and your family and your children and that kind of thing, but then maybe the piece of ground that your house is built on that, and then how to take it further. So this is a long process. That's why they gave us the itinerary, the base itinerary of what the workshops were going to be between now and 2012, literally, just so we'd see the whole sequence. So it is a long program that we learn, pieces of different things every time. But when we go so we just went from the pre-substance conscious plasms to pre-substance compound to next is pre-matter. So you're coming closer to matter. You had pre-substance first, then you have pre-matter, then you have pre-matter metallics, right? Each of these, by the way, has a family name, right? There's going to be a time, and I don't know if it's this workshop or not, but they're going to have us use these family names and call them in certain applications of elemental command. When we work with, for example, the Alaria Rashatan code, all right, this by the way, that was a typo. That should be the Alaria, and these are the Alaria Rashatan. This is the set, that we are working with when we work with that new code, the feel-good code. So we're actually calling on this level the pre-substance hydrolase and working to work with it consciously with our fields. We should have this substance naturally occurring in our physical bodies, but we don't because of the mutation. But there are still bits of it left within the hints of it left, kind of like as broken elemental compounds within the earth grids. But median earth, this is natural. Median earth can still breathe, and it still produces hydrolase. So when we work with using the code to bring in the Alaria rashatan, we're bringing in this particular level of pre-substance hydrolase, but not from earth, it's distorted on earth. The pieces of it are distorted. We're going through the core of Earth, pushing down a little further into where Earth's core gates link into median Earth's core gates. And we are literally drawing from the core of median Earth at this point instead of just Earth's core. And that's like a lifeline to us. That is the only reason why our bodies can start this production, this natural production of hydrolase again, because it's plugging into a field that still does. And that place is median or median ascension Earth, as it's called. It's in the same place our Earth is, actually, at a different angular rotation of particle spin. We'll look at a bit of more of where it is again and that kind of thing when we get into the bigger picture stuff tomorrow. But it is because that, so whenever you don't have to consciously say, okay, I got to plug into median Earth. Sometimes in some techniques, they'll have you directly drop a line down in. But even just to do optical pineal induction of the Alaria rashatan code, just to get that set in naturally in your body, that will automatically drop the line in and give you a living connection to the other Alaria rashatan elements that are compound element that exist as a natural form in median Earth. In median Earth, it's interesting. They have oceans that are the most amazing pale aqua blue color, and it's not because they're reflecting blue from the sky. They're that color. They're kind of like the color of swimming pool water, but naturally, not because of the color of the paint on the bottom. It is the color that hydrolase is in its molecular form, in its elemental molecular form, and it creates water that is lighter. It feels like water. You can swim in it, but you can also breathe it. And they would have an atmosphere on median Earth as well that would be like an evaporated level of that. So you would have air and you would have water, but the water there is friendly water. It doesn't drown you. You could walk in and go see what's on the bottom of the ocean and check it out. And there are certain things that would live in there, like we have fish and those things that live underwater here. They would have their version of that hydrolase breathing, but they walk on the bottom of the ocean too. They can live. There are cities underwater, and there are cities above the ground. So the place called Ascension Earth, Median Ascension Earth, is amazing because it has elemental structures there that are organic and natural that we haven't seen here since the days that, once upon a time we were part of Median Earth. Median Earth is a part of the original Earth that did not get dragged into the nets and into the fall situation. So this is the median Earth place has hydrolase, and hydrolase is like the natural living substance that all other things are built on and organized through. And we're going to begin to bring more of that into our bodies. They tell us finally, I thought they were going to do this last time we were in Virginia Beach, but this time at the end in Monday morning, we are going to finally get to do the journeys to what are called the kivas. But we're going to go to the median Earth kivas. The kivas are large healing pools filled with hydrolase that we can project to and literally soak our projection body in, and it pulls stuff out, like stuff that doesn't belong there, which now we know is called the jarosh. It pulls that out and the distortions out, and it's very, very healing just to hang out in the meditation and soak in there, because your physical body can feel it too. And that's even with just the small projections when we were doing mental level projections. We're not going to do this projection until after we get all of these things opened in our D2 level bodies. So chances are we may be able to really experience the mental and emotional aspects of it, the physical body aspects of it as well. Even if we're not plugging into one of these journeys or something emotionally, like not feeling it as real and all as much as we might like to do sometimes, which happens a lot when it's just coming from the D3 level, it is still bringing the frequencies into your body, so it is still working and healing. But with this one, I'm looking forward to it for you. I don't get to do it until later because when I can't run it and do it at the same time. But I think this one you could really feel benefits with this one, I think. Maybe immediately, or maybe, like once you get home, you'll start to feel, wow. You'll also be able to go back there whenever you want to. It's opening a conduit that you will be able to project yourself there without doing much of anything except closing your eyes, going and going, intending where you're going. So I'm looking forward to the technique levels, as I said, and the big one that will be going to the Kivas. It is one of the most healing things that I felt, besides going into the Gruel or Grail state, that I've ever experienced. The Grail state is going to be combined with going to the Kivas, so this ought to be interesting. I don't know what that's going to feel like yet. I haven't experienced it, but it's something to look forward to. So these are just we're coming closer to matter here. We got more pre-matter. We've got core atomic matter. All right, next one, please. I'm just going to run through these really quick and then show the summary sheet. Yeah? Well, I better go first then. Okay. All right, then next step, 10, coming from consciousness, coming into matter. We have the thermal ether vapor thermoplasms. Then we get that's considered inner matter, right? So we went from pre-substance all the way up through to we're pre-matter. Then we end up with inner matter. Then we have middle matter. And when you think of inner and middle and outer, think of the domains when we talked about the domain bodies. We had the core, the inner, the middle, and the outer, and our reality field is taking place in the outer domains. So this is thermoplasm is the type of matter that you would have in the adons, in the inner levels. You'd have the middle matter as its main base in the what is it, adon? The edons. The edons would be crystallized electrolyte ectoplasms. So this is where ectoplasm comes from. Its natural base is in the middle domains. You still have subharmonics of it out here in the outer domains, but as far as the primary stuff that the matter in those systems is made out of, these would be the primary things. We get here, the outer matter, compound conscious, hydroacoustic, atomic, endoplasm. Our matter is made out of endoplasm. And endoplasm is living water light. All right, it has the form where you had thermoplasms that are vapors. You have ectoplasms that are crystalline, electrified crystal, basically. Here, the matter base is literally living water, hydrolase. So it's considered water matter. And this is interesting because it's not just that there's water inside of our bodies and those kind of things, but the matter itself, the atoms itself, are formed from endoplasm, which is associated with hydrolase, with a liquid base. So we're considered the water matter level out here. And from there, the next is the 144 outer matter elements. There'd be 144 for each one of these going in. So they'd each take their step from whatever their whatever their primary matter type was. They would each have their 144 elements set, with the base of that being the like thermoplasm up there, ectoplasm here, and for us, endoplasm. So this is showing us the stages from pure consciousness going all the way through the translation sequence, through the atomic body, and I mean it's our atomic body, our baby body, or it can be through the atomic body of a star seed that creates stars or galaxies. So the same thing is the same process through which all creation manifests, be it large or small. Stars are born the same way, and there is a donation seed that is used. You don't have like two stars colliding like mommy and daddy and making a spark. It doesn't work quite that way. You get into a place of creation moving up higher where mommy and daddy are androgy, one body, one being, can actually create both, the pattern for both. And that's how stars and things are born, where it's an androgy, and source is the first androgy that brings together the energies that allow for setting in motion the translation sequence through which thought, or it's not even thought yet, it's consciousness, right? It moves through the translation sequence to become feeling, then emotion, then what's called notion, then thought, which is thermoplasm, then goes into hydroplasm and all of that. So the translation sequence right through our body is literally also the process by which a consciousness pulse comes in, up here, that we don't even know comes in, and it then moves down into the coccyx, and there it translates into what would be called emotion. And then that heats up as it moves up into the spleen duct, and it heats up to become what's called notion, and then it heats up to a sparking point in the spleen duct area, and that creates what we call thought. And where does thought go? It goes from the spleen area up into the fontanelle duct when it's working properly, and it does that by going up through certain areas through the main vertical current in certain areas into the brain. We talked about in the last workshop a surprise that I had no idea. That has to do with a natural thing we used to have, a natural organ we used to have in our bodies that actually did that translation for us from the spleen, taking it up through the brain into the duct 4. And there was a natural organ apparatus that we had, a nerve system. That has been perverted, and we have a perverted one actually living within us, and it's called the vagus nerve. And it's actually through the vagus nerve that whole process gets hijacked. That vagus nerve would not be there if our bodies had worked properly. And what we started the process of in the last workshop was saying, okay, well, it's in there, and you can't exactly yank it out at this point, but what you can do is recalibrate it to do, it won't do it as well as the original apparatus that the vagus nerve actually killed, but it will be able to serve some of the same purpose and begin that process. So it's literally reclaiming the vagus nerve for a Christic purpose, because it's actually a physical manifestation of the hijack of our bodies. It would not be in a natural body structure, and it controls a lot of things. So we talked about that a bit in the Slide 1 workshop. So we actually have physical evidence. I remember feeling when they showed me, I had this horrible feeling like, oh my God. It's like one of those horror movies where you've got this thing growing inside you, you know what I mean? And you're ready for it to like pop out your back or pop out your belly, you know how they do that? It felt just like that. Oh my God, there's a thingy connected to my spine and my brain. Ew. Right? Because it's physical. You know, when you do autopsies, people find vagus nerves in there. They exist. They think they're part of the normal human system, and they're not. There used to be another apparatus that was actually our psychic nerve set that allowed for full-on hydrolase conversion and all that. So we've got to kind of borrow back what shouldn't be there in the first place and put it into good service and get it to where we can. I don't know what we'll do eventually. Eventually, perhaps we'll be able to reverse mutate it back into a facsimile of the structure that originally would have been inside of us, until we can get out of here and into higher healing spaces where they'll know what to do with the vagus nerve. If a slider shows up and says, still got that thing in there. What do I do with that? Hopefully we can heal it. But I don't know, because it's a completely different structure than the original structure was there. So that's later healing after we get to the point where, yes, right now we're going to commandeer it. Just like you commandeer a car, like a police can commandeer your car because they have to go chase a criminal. Well, we're going to kick out whatever consciousness doesn't belong in there. Say, excuse me, you can leave willingly, or we're just going to push you out, and we're taking it back because it's inside of our body and it belongs to us. We did that on the D3 level in the last workshop. We are going to anchor that down into the D2 level in this workshop. So this ought to be really interesting. Yeah. Next one, please. Yeah. I better hurry up. I'm already over what I thought I was going to run. Maybe it will take 3 hours after all, the rate I'm going. Okay. This is just to show you. You've seen these before, most of you. This is showing, first of all, it's a set of 24 lines. All right. The ones that are solid lines are the 12 fire chambers of the light body. They run the mana-based energies, and you have this around you, and the planet has this around them. In between them are the 12 Allurian chambers. They are the base element manufacturing chambers. What you're seeing here, and this one has been proportioned properly, where I don't have it all marked clearly yet, much of it, but this is the D3 level. Out here would be the parameter of your Auger body, which would be your density level body. Then you have the D3 level, the D2 level spheres, and I believe the D1 level here. If you see that each one of these sets, if this is one level, these sets are broken into, if D3 starts here, then you have, D3 ends here. This is where the density body starts. This is starting to show you not only the fire chambers and the Allurian chambers, elemental chambers, it's also showing you the basic subharmonic layers to each dimensional layer of the Auger body. So where D3 ends, the D3 body sphere ends, that's where the layers of the Auger body for the density level start. And you would have here, you'd have subfrequency band 1, subfrequency band 2, subfrequency band 3, and here would be the 3.5 level, and then you go into subfrequency band 4, 5, 6. This would be the 6.5 level. And then 7, 8, 9, and 10, 11, 12 would be the outer band. All right, that applies to each one of these down here. This becomes important to help us understand where in our Ajibadi levels and in the planetary vertical stack levels of where these I am consciousness fields are. The I am consciousness fields form as literally you have prana that goes out through the Illyrian chambers. It splits and sends prana ki and prana chi down 2 fire chambers next to it, and there's mana that comes shooting out the fire chambers, and when the prana and the mana collide, they form sparks of literally I am awareness consciousness. And this whole, and it's in atomic form. It will become in atomic form. So these are the base consciousness layers where that awake consciousness comes from, where it's not just consciousness aware of itself, but it becomes conscious in a new way, in the way that we know of, like, wow, hi, I'm awake. Like the difference between a baby just floating around the womb and not really being no fetal integration yet, going, wow, I'm here, I'm awake. That I'm here, I'm awake moment, which is called the ear-on point or the ear-on point moment, that occurs in the bands in between these bands. I believe it occurs at the 3.5 band, and then it circulates the energies through here. So on the density level of the 3.5 band, this would be the I am God self consciousness. You have that level in your own field. When you get to the D3 level, there's the D3 body. It goes from D3, boundary, outside boundary, to D2, right? So coming up here, back into D3, this would be D3, 3.5, 6.5. I don't have the 9.5s marked just because it makes it too confusing. They didn't talk about those much yet. But again, D3.5, 3.5, and this band here, this would be the D3 I am awareness, which is the ego awareness. That is actually where your consciousness is perceiving from right now in order to be able to perceive your D2 body as physically solid. All right? Which implies, doesn't it, that if you can get yourself up here, you get to see your D3 mental body as physically solid. So it's interesting. We haven't even gone into those things. I could just see some of the things where this could go just by understanding the structures, where it will probably go in the future. So this would be your D2 level, going from the outer level of the D2 sphere, of your radial body sphere, because these are actually the radial body spheres that are inside the Ajna body. All right. Here you have your D1, so this would be D2 3.5. In this band here, that is where your body consciousness is, your I am cellular atomic awareness, the parts of you that manifest themselves as that. And that's the stuff that your body is made out of. That's the you that your body is made of. What is your body made of? It's made of matter, but what is that matter made of? It's made of you. All right, it is part of you, your consciousness that came in and literally went into, part of it went into its natural form, part of it went into the reversed natural form that bonds to other stuff from the environment that doesn't belong there. So when we're working with these, when we do the techniques that are coming before dinner, we will do, it's opening these bands right here. The ones we were working on in this whole workshop will open this one. It opens this one. The ones before dinner open this I am God self band, and they begin opening the D3 I am ego band and linking the communication between those two levels of consciousness. What we were working on for this slide 2 workshop, its own techniques. We're going to open the D1 band, the D2 band and the D1 band, and plug them into the D3 band. So it's going to open the flows of consciousness between all of those levels. And that is something that has not been done in the present type of human form since the heavy mutations took place. Even before 9562 BC, these layers were still, this has been all the way back until seeding 1, this mutation had actually started. So this is we're involved in an amazing thing, actually. This is the first time this has been done since the first seeding on the planet to bring the natural body structure of the angelic human and indigo back. If we didn't have an indigo imprint, an angelic human imprint alone would not have been strong enough to turn back around the part of the matter that has been reversed. We would have succumbed to it, and the best thing you could teach a person, in that state would be how to get out of it properly with Bardo when the time comes, right? To get the body up as high as you could, but when it got tired and it was going into mana depletion, it would naturally start to die, and how to get yourself out of it and then take it with you take the energy with you once you get out. But we are actually still being taught how to take the body with us without having to die. Sometimes dying is just a transition, really. It's transitioning from one form to the other. And the mistake is when something dies, the people leave the body behind. They left that part of their quantum there, and then it goes into molecules and atoms into the dirt, and they lost the quantum, which means they're tethered to that same space-time, and they'll have to reincarnate there again until they pick up their quantum. And if they bury their bodies every time they die, they lose progressively their quantum. The only natural way, if you can't naturally vaporize it as you take it out, which is how breatharians, if they want to leave a body, do. If you can't do that, cremation is the way that will free the parent-donated part, that frees your tether, where you're not stuck to the same space-time environment anymore, and it will be able. Then you'll be able to bring the rest of your consciousness up out of the system that was in the body and transmute the body out with you as a heat vapor form. All right? When you do cremation, it does that part for you, right? It transmutes it into a heat vapor form. The stuff that's left that is ash is the verbody donation. So that is the only way that if you can't fully transmute or transfigure a body out on your own because your systems aren't fully up yet, cremation is the way. And if people have been buried, yes, it means they're stuck. And that's why there are big host missions happening up with the beloveds of getting all of these people that did get stuck because their bodies got stuck, getting them out of their review loops. And that is one of the things with the Requiem thing that we're doing tomorrow that will begin the process of opening those hosts into those fields, because you got billions of people in those fields at this point, because this has been going on since seeding 1 and especially since the Atlantean part of seeding 3. So there's a lot of people who need to get free. And there are ways that the beloveds know of how to, well, first of all, they have to host the missing quantum, right? And they have to cut the connection between the body that's not even there anymore. It's, turned into something else, in the planet. They have to be able to replace that quantum and free them from that in order to get them up and out where they can go on their next level of evolution. So it's a big mission we're a part of. It all comes down to the function of the Ajay body. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the back one, because there's more I can talk about that I will do after dinner on this, but I want to make sure before dinner you have time to do the preparatory exercises, because there needs to be a bit of time, and the one takes a little bit of time. It's out now? Is it that early? I mean, that late already? Jeez, I talk longer than I thought I would. Oh, okay. All right, well then we can do it as soon. We can do it immediately after dinner then. All right, so I can talk for 10 more minutes, and then we can just do it instead of trying to. You can't rush through it. They take a half hour at least. Yeah, they take a half hour. So we can get those. That was right when we come back from dinner. We will then do the techniques, and then we'll go into the next level of the lecture. That will take some of the ones that I'm not. It would take me another. I didn't realize it was going to take this long. I would have done it earlier if I realized it was going to take this long. Right. They're saying it's not going to take that long. It's only going to take about an hour. But then I get on tangents and talk. I should know me. This we'll talk about more. This we'll talk about more when we go into the evening session. But to help you understand, it's a mess. These are a mess, and I have not had time to fix them. But it's what you just saw, right? The one you saw before, where it shows the different layers, the density level, the D3 level, the D2 level. I don't know if I have on my little thing. It's written right here. Yeah, I have D1, D2. I can't even read my own thing. D2 is here. Yeah, D1 level is here. D3 level is here. And the density level is here. Just so you see. See these pentagonal-shaped doors? All right? Here's the D3 man. And see the one that's kind of scribbly yellow? It's a pentagon shape, right? The door around the inside flow. All right? We'll talk about those flows later. But the flows are what create the atomic, literally the sparks that form, that stick together to form atoms. But these windows naturally link the state. Our bodies were born with these windows closed because the planet's windows are closed. There's actually one set of these on each of the fire lines, but there's a primary primary set that runs up on fire chamber 12, and that would be the one that runs up over your head. That is the one we've been opening, because if you trigger that one, it will on its own trigger the opening of the smaller ones around it. So what this is showing you is, I didn't have time to pull these apart and do them in sequence and say, oh, this is this, and then put the other bit on so it's all there together. This is how the graphs come in first, by the way. They come in all with everything all over them, and I have to pull them apart and white stuff out all over. But this is showing the D3 one that we opened. That's the window that we opened in slide 1 workshop, the yellow one, D3, yellow. Here's the D2 Gruol one, the orange one, right? That goes with our D2 body. And notice it goes, the flat part of it is, the top and bottom, are in the particular band that it corresponds to. But the top part goes up into the IM band of the next one up. Right? So when you open these windows, this one, for example, the D3, the D3 one, when that window opened up the IM God self space into the D3 mental body. Right? This one, when we open this one, it will open the D2, this is our D2 level. It will open our D3 full ego space, and ego doesn't necessarily mean bad. We call it the ego band because it's associated with the epigenetic overlay, but it is also the 3D part of our consciousness that looks out on this world here and on our body as solid. So it will open our ego state into the body. We're also going to, in this workshop, open this window, the D1 window, which opens this is our body consciousness into the etheric level. This creates an open flow all the way up, D1, 2, and 3. And we're going to, when we open this one, we're going to also be opening this big one. That's called the Jada window. This is the Jada window. And the Jada window connects through the density body and up into density 2 level body, our soul level body, which it would be the D4 band. So this is considered the astral window. So we are literally opening the whole chain. It starts with this one that was done in slide 1. So we'll go through that again to bring it back into like more active activation. If you did it before, that's okay. You still need to do it again. And then we'll progressively open these sets. Now the flows inside of them are, each dimensional one is called there's that word again, pentagal flow. And we'll show you after dinner how they actually, there's a certain thing that happens where energy comes in through the interactions between the Illurian chambers and the fire chambers, and how it creates these particular flows where things bump into each other and make sparks, Jaleesic radiation sparks. And it's those sparks that create the matter base that are encrypted with certain things that they already inherited from the Illurian chambers, and literally come together to form matter. And those matter forms will build out, because we'll probably talk about at some point too, how when we breathe, if things were working normally, we would actually be breathing thought forms out into all of the chambers, and they would become what they call Talia plates. The Talia level, by the way, is this one. This is not Talia, I'm sorry, the Tiwa level is this one, the D3 level. It would actually set these little plates of encryption, and those encryptions then tell the atoms that form through these flows how to arrange themselves into what hologram. So it's a fascinating process. So just before we go to dinner, I want to remind you this one, the first one, the one we're going to do first, is the Tiwa window. Then we have the Gruol window, the D2. Then we have the D1 Jandas window. And then we have the big one, the astral window, which is the Jada window. And once all of those windows are open, then they're as if you took from here and opened it all the way down and made this big pillar, this big column of what would be, it will start as density level catheric hydrolase that eventually will become literally a living water system all the way around the body that stays open at all times. It's also, once these are all open, we begin to be able to, first of all, access all of these levels of consciousness. So we're going to be accessing the D2 level, going into this space when we go into the Gruol state with our Jari, with our D2 Jari. But it's also the state, once these are open, we'll be able to enter those states to peel a part of our Jari out with us where we can start to atomic travel. And this is where we start to be able to do D2 level by location first, and then as more of the atomic structure transmutes and transfigures into light holding structure, we will be able to eventually translocate, which is to be able to literally slide out of here, but you got to slide back until the entire atomic structure transfigures, completely turns to light, at which point the Vibhati cell releases, and then you are no longer tethered to the space-time location. So it's a whole process, but it's certainly worth going for. So we will be back after dinner, and hope you're enjoying it so far. Have a good dinner. Yeah. When we come back at 8:30, we'll come back at 8:30, and we will, take it from there with the first set of techniques. And we may run a little late tonight, if you haven't guessed, but I don't know. I don't know how long the last technique is going to take. It might go fast. I'm not sure. How many steps is it? 45 steps?
Is that the one we're going to